and we are officially live. So I will trim the very beginning of this because we're just getting going, see if people join in. But today we are doing a very exciting, and I'm gonna make sure my volume's off and I've got this pause so we're not doing anything weird here. A very in-depth myth unit tier list video. We've got our myth units here. We've got the full list. I'm very excited to do this. I've been really enjoying the way too in-depth tier list overall, so we're excited to do this one. And I have extra exciting news, and it's that we've actually secured our Atlantean player for this myth unit tier list. And he did some prep work, he did some homework, so I'm really excited to see that. I'm going to give my quick preview here. I've got a couple things I'm going to be fighting for strong one direction or the other. I've got the Troll, and I've got the Rock, and those two I'm going to have some big opinions on, but let's pass it to Mike. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey everyone, this is Mike. My gamer tag's I'm actually a dog, and I'm representing the Atlanteans. Loved them in the old version of the game, love them in the new one. I think my myth unit of choice is going to be the automatons. I just love the idea of a army that can self-repair itself. It's great. I'm a defensive player, love that style.
All right, and Jake?
Hey guys, I'm Jacob. I'm the Egyptian player, and Matt just mentioned the rocks, and I'm also very excited to get into those, so I'm ready.
I'm curious if we're going to be aligned on the rocks or we're going to have wildly different opinions, but we'll see. And then Jay, how about you go ahead and reintroduce yourself, and then I know you've got some things you want to talk about as well.
Definitely. As always, guys, great to be here. Jay, for those of you that don't know me, we do a lot of duocast tier lists, lots of stuff on the channel, so we hope you enjoy the content. I'm a primarily Greek player, and I'll be taking a Greek point of view for the myth units here. And today I'm going to mention a few things about this upcoming tournament that me and Matt are hosting. On October 20th, the Underworld Showdown will take place, the first of many, hopefully. And we're excited about the tournament. We have 8 of the world's best players and AOM joining in. And as the Liquipedia page is pulled up, you can see there'll be a prize pool. We have a map pool. Everything's released. A couple quick announcements on that. The 8th player has been announced. Count from JSS, who's one of the leaders of that organization, is stepping in to lead his men from the front. We're very excited to have him. He's one of the old school AOM players from the original game, and it's exciting to see him join in as well with the rest of the roster that we have put together. And one other small change is the map pool has been slightly adjusted. We did take out Mediterranean today and added in Oasis to be able to have a similar pool to Genesis. So that was one thing that did change up from the original announcement, and we're really excited about the tournament. We can't wait to have you guys watch on the 20th, and it's exciting. How do you feel, Matt?
I am actually so excited. It works out perfectly too. I feel like the timing with Genesis, because, you know, it was an invitational. We've got a small crew. I know people were asking why we didn't have more of a qualifier, larger tournament, but honestly, everyone, it's just because we haven't done this before, and we're trying to start small, see what sort of success we can have with our first tournament, and then go from there. So we are looking to do qualifiers in the future. We are looking to do team game tournaments in the future as well. But honestly, it's a dream come true. I know, Jay, we've been talking about doing something like this for a decade now, and we're finally making it happen. So I can't wait for the day, and I hope we get a big crowd. I hope we have some exciting games, and I'm just really hoping we get that game 5 in the finals.
Definitely. And later this weekend, we will be releasing the actual bracket for who plays who publicly, so you'll be able to anticipate the matchups. And throughout from now till, actual game day on the tournament, we'll have some game casts of the players as well as some additional content revolving around the tournament. So stay tuned on our YouTube, stay tuned on the Twitch. A lot of content's coming out for it before the tournament is here, and we cannot be any more excited to have you guys all join us on the 20th for a full day of Age mythology.
Yeah. And these links here, I did just post a link to the Reddit in the Twitch chat. I don't think we have a lot of people in the Twitch chat yet because we just got started, but these will be in the YouTube video as well in the video. And that's the best place to get, hype content that we're making, news announcements for the tournament, schedule, matchups, all that. If you join the Discord, that's the best place to get it. And of course, we'll upload to the YouTube and the Twitch as well. And I think it's time to get into the myth unit tier list. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So,
and
go ahead.
Shout out to Mike, finally having an Atlantean member of the cast joining us. So all those YouTube comments where you guys said, "Oh, you guys don't care about the Atlanteans." Well, guess what? We have a dedicated Atlantean player with us. So
we got it.
Can't hear that anymore.
We finally
happy to be here. Happy to represent.
All right.
We got someone so we don't have to pretend to care.
That's true. That is, and also I feel like a very real thing with all of the tier lists, well, I guess just the god power in this one, is sometimes with not playing Atlanteans, you play against them enough that you know what the good god powers are like, but then there's some god powers that you just never see the Atlantean player pick, so you gotta kind of think that they're not very good. And I feel like there's some myth units like that I feel the same way, but I guess we'll see what you think, Mike.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree. We'll get into it.
So to talk to how I organize this, we've got our Age 1 myth units, so we only have the Raven and Pegasus, and we'll talk about those two. Then we've got Age 2, we've got Age 3, we've got Age 4, and I included flying units with each age's units, so we'll talk about them as we go through the ages. And then we've got the special summon myth units. They're not related to your minor god age up specifically for the myth unit you get, but through a god power or through a special interaction, you have the ability to get these myth units. So we've got the Dryad, the Fimbulwinter Wolves, Nidhogg, the minions that you can get from both Ancestors and the Mummy, Serpents, Hades Shade, and the Walking Woods. We picked these because we felt like they are the most similar to how typical myth units function, whereas other things like Golden Bursty doesn't really function like a myth unit that you can build. Son of Osiris is a hero unit, you know, those type of things. Carnivoria, Tartarian Gate, where you can't control them after casting, those feel just more like god powers and not myth units that we wanted tier, so that's why we left those out. And then also, as you can see, we left out the water units. Honestly, there hasn't been a lot of water map play. They're not used very much. And we also just had a big patch that changed a lot of the water units themselves. So we're just going to avoid the water units. We'll do a shorter video later where we tier list those after we get to see some more water maps, which we will have at the Underworld Showdown. So we're excited for that. And with that, before we get into the actual tier list, I want to just quickly go over the patch that just came out. There's a couple things that are getting touched for myth units. For the most part, it's just water myth units, but there's a couple of other things to mention. First of all, Greek hero move speed nerfs. So in Greek matchups, your myth units that outrun Achilles and Atlanta, I think, have gotten slightly better on this patch. So I want to call that out. We have a direct centaur nerf, pretty sizable, from 28 damage to 21 for the special attack. So again, a centaur nerf. I do think it is somewhat counterbalanced by this, so we'll think about that. Then we've got water units, nothing to call out here. The minion slight nerf, so worse versus heroes and a little bit slower than before, so important to call out. Golden Bursty, but we're not going to be talking about that. And then Granite Blood, the Hell technology, did get nerfed, so the bonus hit points for rock giants is going down to 20%. So pretty significant nerf to the rock giant if you're going through Hell. So sometimes, you know, it's situational, but it does have an impact. And then I think the very last one here was the automatons. So automatons, we got the train time went down just a little bit, not a huge difference, but did want to call those out because those just changed about 5 hours ago. So we want to include that inside the tier list video. And with that, I think we're ready to get started. Any final thoughts before we jump into the actual tier list?
Yeah, I'm going to take a quick second. Keep in mind when we do this tier list, it's similar to the God Powers one. We'll be originally ranking each unit in the same age before we compare them to the whole spectrum as a whole. As always, S, B, and A will be tiered as like strongest to weakest. C, D, and F not so much. At the very end, we'll compare all the units together as a whole for the game.
Yeah, exactly. We'll follow the same process with the God Power tier list, rank within the tier, and then fix the tier ranking and give everyone a last minute chance to make an argument. So let's start, and I guess I'll start because I've definitely played the most with these, but the Odin Ravens. These were incredibly OP on the Titans. They were really good on release of the game, and I think they're just okay now. They've really nerfed the vision that you get with Odin's Ravens. It's really difficult to see on the map with them unless you get them just nice in that sweet spot. And also, if the opponent does find these today, they're incredibly squishy. They're like a fourth of the health pool of the original Ravens inside of the Titans and Extended Edition. So they're much more squishy now. And I think given the fact we're comparing directly to Pegasus, my thoughts with these is that Ravens become B tier and Pegasus becomes A tier. I think it's the better scouting unit. And I think if we're talking about the top 50 players on the ladder, this goes up to S and the Ravens go up to A. But I think overall, this is where I would slot in these two units. I think the scouting is incredibly beneficial. Flying scouts are way better than regular scouts for a lot of reasons. Better pathing, less threats to them. And I think that's where I would slot these two in. What do you guys think?
I'll jump in here.
do. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
I was going to say Pegasus, definitely that range of vision is better early. But I think when you get to more of the middle game, the Ravens actually might be a better choice, because I've definitely seen games where people just have them sit over two of the gold mines near the enemy base. And when those villagers come, they don't have the means to actually shoot the Raven down, so they kind of just hover there and show you if they're utilizing that gold or not.
Yeah, it's an interesting point because the Pegasus has like a flat line of sight, right? 18. And the Raven, they recently changed this to scaling based on your age. So it actually catches up in the heroic age. So great point, Jacob. Catches up in the heroic age and does get better in the mythic age. I think the important thing to call out with this, where we can find it in here, but the respawn time is incredibly long. Yeah, look at this, 240 seconds for when they die. And you can't train them like you can Pegasus if your Pegasus dies, and that's a really long window. I feel that when I play Odin, it takes a long time to get those Ravens back, and they're really easy to lose. Like, they go down quick.
And to just comment on that, that's actually why I was going to argue Ravens to C for two reasons. One is because that respawn timer, but secondly also because the health difference between the two is just insane. You start at 30 base, can get upgraded to 50 with the Ravens, and you start with 100 base on Pegasus, it can jump up to 140 with full benefits through the Greek upgrades. So durability wise, it's just like the Ravens, if you have one or two Toxotos even, you're able to take that Raven out right away early, or any range unit for that matter.
And it's faster.
It's
a faster unit.
And it's faster.
Yeah, significant difference.
I think Raven, if we're talking Ravens of old time, I think B is very fair, if not higher. But I mean, it's just because with the way they nerfed it, and I think in the patch before this last one, the vision changes, I think you have to put it in C.
I think I agree. And also, like, I think the one thing I'll call out the Ravens why I would never want to see it below is that you can get these very quickly in a game for no resource investment, right? They are free. So that early portion of the game where you're mostly interested in scouting the map and then identifying basically two things, where's their gold line and where's their wood line. That's what you're looking for. And then, because hunt, you're going to find that with regular scouting. So I think that gives it a benefit. But yeah, again, I think just the stats and everything are way better for the Pegasus. And for 2 favor, if you take that unique tech, it only costs 2 favor to create these. That's nothing.
Yeah, and for the cost of 50 food on top of that, you're basically sacrificing 1 villager to get complete scouting control as well as map information. So it's very inexpensive to be able to pump out Pegasus early to get a control of the whole game.
So I think we leave it there and shout out Pegasus Rush. I guess he got his namesake because he would rush out Pegasuses on the map to try and distract the enemy from hitting his military units and instead targeting the Pegasus. So very
specifically with
strategy.
Yeah. Very funny strategy. It's a great way to have a name according to Wikipedia.
Yeah.
That might be an interview question we talk about during Underworld Showdown.
All right, so let's go to the real bulk of the tier list. That's kind of a one-off there. And Jay, since we've got Greek up front, let's go ahead and have you start here. Where do you want to start? Centaur, Minotaur, Cyclops?
Centaur. We shall start with Centaur. Easily one of my favorite myth units in the game. If you asked me about it at game start, this would have been S tier without any question whatsoever. It was a completely dominating strategy. Be able to have Centaur with Cav, be able to poke in and out. I might even think it's still S tier. But with the recent nerf that we just lurked at, where it's dropping 7 damage on top, and they did a couple other nerfs in the previous, so it's twice now that's been dropped. I might keep it in A. I do think it's an extremely beneficial myth unit to have, and the other thing too is it's a wood cost on a myth unit, not food or gold, which is huge because there's not many myth units that actually cost wood. Being able to, as a Greek player, be able to sacrifice wood for a myth unit, Centaur is very advantageous early on. I'm having a hard time, but it's between S or A. I'm going to hear the opinions of others, but it has to be in one of those two categories, no matter what.
Yeah, I think I agree with you there, S or A. That makes sense to me. I'm also messing with the chat. But I think what we noticed in some of the games is that these units don't do as much damage, and although the Greek hero nerf to movement speed basically means unless you're playing an Egyptian player, if you have perfect micro, there's nothing they can do to defend the Centaur in the early game. So I think at the very, very top, these are still incredible. But I think for like even just our high elo bracket, not pros, not the very top, but high elo, I feel like these are only B tier right now just because the damage has been nerfed so much.
E tier.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to point out too, these guys have the lowest favor cost out of any of the starting Greek ones, so it's a lot easier to kind of get a few of them out early too. So
yeah, I guess you know what, between the favor cost and the fact that it's wood, I'm willing to settle on A tier here. I think that the resource distribution is by far the best of the Greek myth units. I'd be curious, Jake, if you could check between the Wadjet and the Centaur, kind of similar units. They're backline support ranged, you know, how much the cost is, but I think that does convince me, Jay. I'll let you put this in A tier.
And just to like talk about its special ability, volley is extremely beneficial in low, middle, and high elo games. Maybe pro games it's not as potent, but having volley be able to bash against early regular units, whether it's like Ufskarks from the Norse or Spearmen from the Egyptians, Berserk, yeah. It's a great ability to counter early Age 2 units that you're going to be spamming out. So it's immense in team fights. And the only other thing I'll mention too on that is it does have an 80% crush armor, not hack armor, benefit too, which isn't used by all the primary units in H2, but that is a very high statistic too to keep in mind.
I feel like all units are that high, dude. Come on, they're all that high for like regular units.
Are they all?
Yeah, 80% crush is pretty normal.
Yeah, that's standard. That's standard for a myth unit. I mean, I think it's like 70 to 90 for most things because, and also like if your Centaur is getting hit by crush damage, either you're making a mistake or your opponent's making a blunder. Like because battering ram shouldn't be wailing on the Centaur, you know. Yeah. I'm not too worried about that. You know, the big thing for me with the Centaur is it's a very fun special ability, especially at top levels. Jay, remember the games we cast where there was the Centaur Rush? This thing, the special attack, does still do crazy damage to villagers, but the amount of pro players we see literally dodge it with their villagers, just causing 2 seconds of idle time, then running straight back to the gold mine. You know, like it's one of the most micro important myth units out there. You can't just like let it attack move in your army. You really need to micro these things.
Yeah, I was about to say the exact same thing, Matt. If you're really focused on the Centaur, you can do a lot of harass and some damage to villagers, interrupt that econ, but you send in a Cyclops or a Minotaur, and they're kind of just brute forcing it.
Yeah, exactly. Margin of error is high with these guys. Okay,
right.
I think we're good to move on. And also, I think just to tell everyone who's watching at this point, we're going to do the same thing where we adjust this for team games at the end. I think that's always a fun part of this, is how myth units are different depending on if it's 1v1 or you got a team game going. All right,
this is on the premise of 1v1s at the moment.
Yep, 1v1s at the moment.
So next one is Minotaur. I think Minotaur is a S class myth hero. It's my favorite Greek hero currently in the game, Age 2, and maybe even in the whole. 4 is its special ability, which is really nice. It sends a unit flying away, deals hack damage, and a 2x multiplier against myth units. It only does 0.5 against heroes. But overall, it's extremely effective. As a Greek player, you can use them as early siege. They are pretty durable. Their cost is very low, actually. I think it's only 180 gold. Yes, 180 gold and 15 favor. So it's still very low cost. It's able to pump out a bunch of these early on. And just the overall feel when you have multiple Minotaurs on the map, you feel like you have control of fights as long as you're able to micro against any incoming heroes. They're very, very effective Age 2.
One thing that sticks out to me about the Minotaur is despite being a very tanky and very high damage unit, it's also quite fast. Like, it's not as fast as the Centaur or any of your typical fast myth units, but it's not in the same category as the Cyclops, the Colossus, like your kind of siege AoE damage myth units. It actually gets around the map very fast, and I believe the Bull Minotaur, someone fact check me on this, but I believe the upgrade even gives it more movement speed. So for a unit with as much damage as it has, and like basically 2 of its special attacks, if you land them perfectly, can kill 6 to 8 villagers if you land 2 of them. Like, it's that much damage. I agree with you, Jay. I think this guy's got to be S tier.
Yeah.
Any arguments from our other 2 players?
I'll just mention, I played one game where the Minotaur knocked one of my troops into the tree line where he got stuck and couldn't get out. So just for that alone. Keep him in S.
All right, we'll keep him an S. Jay,
Right.
Cyclops.
Cyclops. Okay, this might be controversial. I don't really know what other people think, but I do not rate the Cyclops as highly as the Minotaur or other heroes. I think that the Cyclops is good. It definitely is more beefy, but the speed of the unit itself, I think it's 3.5, is very slow,
3.8.
which I take against.
Mm-hmm.
3.8. Fully upgrade is 3.8. 3.5 is base speed of the upgrade. But I think it's B tier. Honestly. I would rather have Minotaurs due to cost of the actual unit, as well as I do think its special actual ability isn't too bad, where it's able to. I haven't pulled it up, but it basically picks up one unit and throw it and has an area effect damage. It's a good ability. But I just prefer Minotaurs much more. They're less cost. I feel like they actually can run with my army at the same time. I feel like they have more impact in the game when I have used them.
And
Yeah, I think something to consider with the Cyclops too, though, is if you give it the proper protection with a couple infantry, I mean, it's pretty much a trade-off for a tower in the enemy space. Its crush is so strong early on.
You're right, but to counter it one more time is like every civilization, in my opinion, has an early answer to the Cyclops speed. Whether it's a priest, whether it's just a unit that you upgrade to a hero, or even a Hussar.
Any ranged hero is it's
fair.
game over for the Cyclops.
Yeah, it's so ineffective on being able to avoid that damage early on from an early hero. Whereas the Minotaur, you effectively could just march with your army and get away from a priest or somebody else.
Something I think is important to the conversation too is just the level of tankiness, because you've kind of got this base Cyclops, and then with the Minotaur, if you get Bull Minotaur, you're sitting about 200 less health, but when you look at the actual resistances, they're way better for the Minotaur base resistances, and with the extra speed, I feel like what I've seen in games is people effectively being able to use their Minotaurs and then pull them back and leverage restoration to have a full health Minotaur mass at the beginning of a fight after doing all this harassment on villagers and gathering spots. And the fact that you can get out of fights, you have better resistances. I feel like there's nothing that I can really think of that the Cyclops does better except for sit there and wail on a tower. And really, at the end of the day, how much of a difference is that making in the fight? I don't think it's a huge difference.
Yeah, that's another good point. Definitely another good point.
I would maybe go C tier. Jake, I'm curious in your thoughts, because I almost feel like we've seen John Arbiter do some pretty cool things with this, and it's a shame that replay file was bugged, but he's the only person I even see doing it, and even like those games, sometimes it doesn't work.
Yeah, I feel like when he's playing those games, he's just going Cyclops to challenge himself.
Yeah, he seems to just like love the unit, like he wants to make it work. But
I'd say move down to C.
Yeah.
There's no disengaging with them, so you're either cleaning house or they're just going down.
Yeah.
I'm fine with it being C, but if there are certain myth units that you decide to put into B category that are just blatantly not better than the Cyclops,
yeah,
I will contest that.
Yeah, we'll come back around to it. So Jake, how about you get us going with Egyptian?
All right, so first one for Egyptian looks like we're starting with the Sphinx. So this little cool cat has the ability to spin to win, which is kind of nice because you can take out groups of enemies, a little bit of AoE.
Really good versus villagers too, like tons of damage versus villagers.
Tons of damage.
Yeah, you got pretty good speed, so you can kind of scout out, find villager camps, spin, do about half their health, and then try to come back a little later. I'd put it solid B tier, I think. I might move it up to A, I don't know if we want to factor this in at all, but you do get the God Power Eclipse, which makes myth units better, so it does make the Sphinx a little better. The Sphinx, you do have 2 different upgrades you could get with it to make them pretty tanky.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's what I definitely wanted to highlight, is I feel like the Sphinx gives Egyptian civs a very interesting option as far as not going Heroic Age. And actually one of my solo cast games, I got to highlight it for later out here. We got this game here, but the highlights for a different myth unit. But the Sphinx can really be used super effectively for raids on villager camps, because they're faster than most heroes, and regular soldiers don't do anything to them. Plus, you can pull them back to get healed up with the priest. So you can effectively lose 0 Sphinx, use a couple priests to heal them up when they come out of raiding, and then stay in the classical age. And I've actually seen that being used pretty effective. I feel like for movement speed and ability to shred villagers alone, I'd like to see the Sphinx in A tier.
Honestly, I think your guys are underrating it a little bit. I think it's the best Age 2 myth unit
Do you
for
think
the
it might be
Egyptians.
S tier?
Yeah, like, I mean, I have seen pro players do some of the most dirty things with the Sphinx, being able to take out an entire gold mine with just 2 Sphinx early on, without even the use of Eclipse, for that matter. The fact that they're so durable, the speed is, I think it might actually be the fastest.
No, it's not the fastest. No, it's not the fastest. It's
no, fully upgraded.
6.4.
It might be.
Oh, actually, that's Centaur 6.2. Is the Valkyrie faster? Because the Valkyrie gets an upgrade as well. It might be the fastest. Is that?
Yeah, it has the best speed, the ability to heal it through priests with your kit as an Egyptian player. Its durability, like, I think we're underselling Sphinxes completely, and it needs to be here. That's my opinion, but again, I'm not the Egyptian guy playing for it.
No,
I
think you sold me. I think you sold me on it. I think even better than the Minotaur. Not thinking about the speed. But look at the stats too. The stats and the ability to get upgrades. The armor is quite good. 60% match the Minotaur. It's only 5% hack lower than the Minotaur.
You guys wanted to put it in A tier or B tier. I think the fact that I convinced you to put it in S tier lets me keep my on the top of the category.
So as much as I want to say, it should be S tier because I love Egyptian myth units, it is kind of possible to miss your ability, which does lock the Sphinx to that location for like a good second. And if the units run out of range, it's not going to get any damage off.
Yeah, but when you look at players,
I think it's important. I think it's important to highlight the cost to get that top speed, right? You got 150 wood, that's not too bad. Sorry, I keep clicking on that. And 5 favor. But then to get the next upgrade, it's up to 200 wood, 10 favor. So you do have a pretty significant investment into resources to upgrade these. But now that I think about this, I wonder if we're seeing raw players leverage rain early in the game to get the bonus woodcutting gather speed, just to stock up enough for these upgrades and a couple Sphinx and doing that. I don't know if I've seen that. Have you, Jay, in a game? But that's kind of interesting to think about.
I think I've seen it a couple high elo games where rain is cast like right at the beginning of Age 2, and I didn't really attribute it to the Sphinx itself, but that makes sense why they would probably do it, to be able to get those upgrades earlier on. And yeah, while you have 2 upgrades and you're paying a total of 350 wood plus the 15 favor to get it to the max level, in the end of the day, your opportunity cost is what? Getting another 2 Sphinx at best.
It's about the cost of like a Sphinx and a half, right, for each one.
Sphinx and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to get it fully upgraded and
less
on the map,
favor too, crucially.
Yeah, much less favor. And it's anything less than S tier makes me... that is one of the best Egyptian god units early on, because you see players even take it into Age 3, Age 4.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've seen Jake pull off so many nasty Sphinx, like even just 3 of them, and you drop Ancestors Eclipse, and those Sphinx do insane damage. I think I'm happy with an S. Anyone final arguments to pull it out of that?
All right, cool. I guess we'll move on to the next one.
Before we do, I notice how the Atlantean player doesn't say anything. It's possibly because a lot of Sphinx have killed his unit and being a little,
No, I didn't say anything only because I'm in perfect agreement with it. I think of those 3, the Sphinx provides the best harass by a long shot early on.
Yeah, interesting.
So I'm with you. I'm bumping it up.
I bet the Atlantean, Michael, it probably is better for you to fight off the Sphinx with the Atlantean citizens than it is for any other civ, because basically, Jay, what we've seen is if you have 2 Sphinx, you one-shot that villager line. But that's not true with the Atlantean villagers. Plus, if you're far away from the base, they can heroize, and then suddenly the Sphinx are useless. So that's actually kind of an interesting thing. I don't know if you've experienced that, Mike, but I feel like you can fight them off better than we can.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. And especially if you're going Gaia, you get the bonus. Your villagers will collect resources faster if you upgrade them to heroes. So if you're going against Sphinx, that's definitely the counter for it. But I think across the board, though, if we're counting all of the different classes in here, Sphinx is definitely the highest rated.
Yeah, and we've got in the chat here talking about movement speed. So it does show the specific Sphinx line upgrade. The Valkyrie does get an upgrade, but it's not specifically for that unit. It's just Cavalry and Valkyrie. So I am trying to see. It looks like her base is 5.5, and I believe is it a 10% buff? I believe it gets her up to 6. But Gosu Fana, if you can post maybe the link or something to the fandom page with that upgrade, we can kind of see what the top speed is, because I think it's important, and it's also going to help with the Valkyrie argument later.
We're in, all the stats that we're using are from the Age of Empire or Age of Mythology wiki. They are updated for Retold, and we're using those specific stats. But if you do see anything differently, feel free to comment in the chat, and we can go back to that.
Yeah, and we can check here too. It's just tough because it's almost hard to find a real source of truth for a lot of these things. So we can just get stuff wrong because it's what the wiki tells us. We have this inside of the game, but it only gives you the base. This is the base speed of the Sphinx. So in order to get the true numbers, we need to load up every game. And although we're doing the way too in-depth tier list, it's already going to be 2 hours. So if we did that, this becomes a 5-hour recording. I just don't think we can go into that level of detail. So let us know if we get something wrong. We'll put some comments in and update the video with some overlays to show it. But we got to kind of trust the wiki and the client. That's all we got.
Yep. On to the next, Jacob. What do you think of the witches?
So we're moving from S tier all the way down to, I'm gonna say D tier for the Wadjets. These guys just are not good at all. They're squishy. They don't pump out damage. They only can attack one unit at a time.
Do you
believe it or not,
Jake, the poison to be noticeable with the Wadjets? I'm curious.
No, when you get to units like the mummies, you can actually see the poison taking them down. But with the Wadjets, I haven't noticed it. And,
I just want to comment. Oh, go ahead, sorry, Jacob.
Well, I was going to say, comparing these to the centaurs, they cost 30 less wood, which is kind of negligible, and then they actually cost 1 more favor. So you can't even pump out a bunch of them really if you want.
I was just going to say, at a pro level, I've seen a few pros, specifically Recon. I was watching him stream the other day, and I saw him. Oh, and as well as it was Ulysses as well. They were playing with Wadjets, and I saw them do a very effective strategy where they had a few of them, about 4 or 5. That poison damage became so potent that they were able to take down stronger myth units, larger armies, just because the amount that they had. So I wonder if, like, at a pro level, maybe this unit just becomes a lot better, as they're able to micro them more so. I don't know about the game overall, per se, just because I don't play with them much when I play with the Egyptians, but it's something to think about. Can
I enlist also a scribe just really quick? Because one of the things I want to test after this, like we did with the relic video and the god power video, is does the Wadjet poison stack? I want to go test that and confirm, because I think that changes the tier list for me, because I've seen the poison, it feels like it's doing a lot, but I also agree with Jake where I've seen where it doesn't feel like it's doing anything. To me, the only thing that would buff this up to a C tier for me is the fact that it's wood. I think the fact that it's really easy to mix a couple of these in your army and provide some decent backline, that makes them pretty good for Egyptian players who will always have extra access to wood, staying safe in their base. That's my thoughts.
I am 90% sure it does stack. I think the way that the myth units abilities work, if I'm not mistaken, is it's not as an ability overall, but it's to this specific unit. Like, you can get 2 Minotaurs doing the same thing. You could get 2 Pheonixes doing whatever it is. 2 units have its own unique ability and will stack upon one another. So I do think that poison does stack.
Okay, cool. Arguments back to down to D. Michael, any thoughts on this one?
No, yeah, nothing for me on that one.
Okay, you can give a final ditch pitch at the end there, Jake, if you want to bump it back down to D. I think when we get some more ranged, slow support units into the tier list, it'll probably make it easier to slot it in at the end. The next one's also very interesting. A lot of changes with this. Jake, you want to talk about a new bite?
Yeah, and the Jumpy Boy's a new buy. I do think one good change that's kind of interesting is you're able to manually use your specials. And so I know Matt, you're probably going to comment on this, but we saw a player using that to help scout out faster and actually make them get better movement speed, because you can just constantly spam that jump to kind of clear some distance, even when you're not
barriers too, right? To get more efficient pathing. Like, you can do a lot of cool stuff with it.
If your enemy's just stacking archers like Jay does on Hades behind walls, these guys can be pretty good, just jumping over there and mowing them down. So I do like that aspect for sure. Let's go ahead and put B tier right now while we discuss further.
Yeah, I kind of agree with B. The big thing with the Anubite for me that makes it worse than some of our other harass units is just that the special effect is really nice for movement, but the amount of damage you can do, even with the perfect setup, just isn't as much as the Sphinx or the Minotaur or the Centaur. Like, you can only delete 1 or 2 villagers with the damage you get from 3 or 4 of these guys before they're safely pulled to their tower or town center. And yeah, you can jump out, you can go heal up, but the total maximum reward feels so much lower than these other big AoE damage myth units.
I will add 2 comments to the Nubite. One, I do think if the Nubite is easily S-class when it comes to like coolness from the original game to now. I think a Nubite is one of the badass units. In and out assassin, able to harass. I love that. But actually, for the game itself, the real comment is 100 food. Just think about what myth unit or what unit at all is only 100 food.
That is cheap. Like, what's the favor on
that?
That
is one. The favor is
15.
15, yeah. The favor cost is substantial, like most units by all means, but 100 food is extremely cheap for a myth unit, let alone any unit. You're adding in both food and gold or wood and food, whatever it might be for your unit. Like that's less than some regular units cost wise. So something to point out. I do think that's important. Its movement speed is right in line with most others at around 5.3.
It's pretty fast. It's pretty fast for compared with the average unit.
It's just a good unit. I do think it's a good unit to have. And you don't play a Nubite necessarily for a win game, but it's great for early harass to get you to the later stages while you progress your game.
And I think maybe we haven't seen the potential of it yet, but I do think B tier makes sense. Like, it's got great uses, but it's not as damaging as these other units. I'm happy to leave it there. Okay, so my first pitch, it's going to have to be Valkyrie immediately inside of S tier. This unit is basically what has made a lot of the Norse Pantheon good at top elo brackets, because you get a forward temple up, especially with Odin, you get an insane age up time with Great Hunt, and with your increased gather rate on food, you can age up incredibly fast. And there's just like nothing that a lot of civs can do about a Valkyrie running around their base hitting villagers. You get a nice forest fire with this unit on the first raid, and actually I think if we did the God Power tier list, I'd go back and bump Forest Fire up to C tier. I still don't think it's amazing, but it does have pretty good use with the Valkyrie, because basically it allows you to hit villagers only 2 or 3 times to get the kill, and there's just no unit that can catch you in the early game. None of the Greek heroes can. Egyptians, the Pharaoh can get on the Valkyrie, but if you're paying attention, it can only get 1 or 2 shots, and then you can heal up. So I just think the unit's kind of unmatched, and I would argue it's the best in the game right now. For age 2 myth units, I think it's the best in the game.
The speed, the heals, the harass, it's got it all.
Yeah, I mean, Scouting, it's hard to argue.
Checking the gold mines, checking the hunt constantly on the map. Like, this unit does everything.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? Originally, I was going to say maybe not against. No, I can't even say that. No, it probably is the best age 2 hero. I mean, myth unit.
The fact that it's able to just dodge the town center arrows as it runs around, it can run laps around.
And now basically it has free reign except for against Egyptians, and then sometime I would say against Gaia. I don't think it has free reign against Gaia, because you get those hero citizens, you can upgrade them cheaper, and if you have a hero unit, the Valkyrie's not going to do anything. But any other matchup, the unit is just unmatched. There's no comparison to having this on your army.
Actually, a good point is because of the recent nerf to Greek heroes, I would have contested that actually it's not that effective against Greeks, because all you do is you put Hippolyte, I can't even remember her name.
Hippolyta.
Polyetta, yeah, sure. You just put her on top of her and just chase her around the whole map, because they have like very similar, if not the same movement speed, and then you effectively make the Valkyrie useless, but you can't even do that now with the nerf.
Yeah, with the nerf, and also Gosufana, he did correctly get the numbers there. Valkyrie is 6 speed, but the upgrade that you can get through her Minor God gives her up to 6.6 speed. So like, there's just nothing that can catch this unit.
Gotcha. Yeah, if that's the case, I mean, that is what it is at that point.
And my final reaffirming this thing is that like even with raiding cavalry being very fast, or Poseidon, cavalry units being very fast, none of them are even close to as durable as the Valkyries. Like you can actually reasonably micro these, get great harass, get them back and heal consistently, even if you're not incredible at the game. Like you can do that. Like they're much tankier than your other cavalry units. So yeah, just reaffirming why I think it's the best out there. All right.
Fair. I agree. Next up.
Next one, somewhat controversial, I'm going to bet, but I am putting the troll in B tier. I think a lot of people think this unit is completely garbage. It has no uses. I did pull a clip, so the Rapple posted in our Discord a clip of the game, and I wish I could get something more disastrous with the trolls, but he's playing against Boyd here, and he responds perfectly. So what you'll see is that he's got about 6 or 7 trolls here inside of his army. He's got the cave troll upgrade, and you can see that Boyd wants to engage in this fight, but what he knows is going to happen if he does is his front line is just going to be knocked to oblivion by all of these trolls in the back line. So he plays it well to try and avoid that combat, but I'm just gonna play this here, and you can see how much that the Rappel is able to get an advantage here, because there's nothing that Boyd can do to turn around and take this fight because of the mass that he's gotten. Like he wants to turn, he wants to fight, he's got the front line, but he knows these trolls are just going to decimate them, and as soon as they get a chance to attack, so he doesn't turn. At no point he gets his full army there and turns. And you can see the trolls they're theoretically not doing anything here, but it's the threat, and that's why Boyd can't take the fight. So he plays it right against the trolls, but you can see the pressure they put on, like how do you take that engagement? And this was a super close game up until this point. So I think if you can get to a critical mass with the trolls, they become like a really incredible backline DPS unit, because they do good damage, and that disruption that they can cause with the rock is like super incredible to knock back the front line.
Yeah, that's fair. They seem like a pretty useless myth unit if they're by themselves, 1 or 2 of them, but if you can scale it up to a big line like that, I mean, you can see the power.
And that's why I can't put them in A, is because they're absurdly slow, right? Like they're crazy slow. And you can even see there, they didn't get attacks off, because if you kite out the fight, they're too slow to catch up to the actual battles. So like, that's why I was shouting out Boyd for playing it like perfectly, even though it was an impossible fight to win. But because if you stop for long enough for them to wind up that attack, just the AoE damage that it does to the front line, not to mention it's like a shockwave each hit. I think it's actually really good. But I think
what's your... Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think it's only good if you hit a critical mass, right? Like just one of them isn't making a dent in the fight. You have to have like a critical mass to knock back the entire front line.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, do you know what the favor cost is for that? Like how hard is it to ramp up a decent amount of trolls?
Well, the thing about the Norse is you can pretty much invest in one thing with favor and go all out constant production inside of that thing, but you have to decide what it is. So like if you want to use god powers, you have to save up for, like Thor will very often cast Dwarven Mind multiple times in a game. So that's where your favor's going. But only 15 favor cost, you're getting that very often in a Norse game, because I've hit several games where I've hit second cast of flaming weapons, right? 250 favor. So if you decide to use that for trolls, all you need is wood, which again is the easiest resource to gather. Like there's no issues getting wood, so you can mass this pretty well if you decide to invest in it. And I think with Thor being really strong right now, I think that's why trolls are starting to be played. And with the tanky front line you get with Thor specifically, these guys are the perfect backline support unit to combo with that army.
Yeah, good argument. I mean, he seems like a pretty fair place to put him. I like that.
They're just slow. That's the downside, they're just slow.
I do feel like there's a little bit of micromanaging that comes with them, because if the enemy sends 1 unit out and you have 5 trolls, all 5 of them will use their special on it. Yep. And then you could come in and wipe them.
Okay, so next up we have the Einhar instead of the Nirhar, so you have to get the upgrade to get all the way there. I think this unit, it's honestly like really good with the one that you get for free. Like going into that minor god to get Heimdall, to get that one Nirhar for a push with Undermine, a big timing attack. I think it's really good in that situation, but I just don't see the point in investing your resources into these. So I think it's a C tier. It's like a timing attack, really good push myth unit, but you're not making multiple of these. The boost to your army is nice, but it's really just with that one big engage. And these units are so slow and so vulnerable to hero units that they're not really doing enough damage themselves for me to think they're worth it.
These guys are definitely the opposite of critical mass. You only really want one in your army if you're going to have them at all.
Yeah, exactly. And I wish you could, like, maybe even you can, but like use their active ability without them having to be at range to right click, an enemy unit. I think I will have to test that, add that to the changelog, whoever's taking notes there for things to test, but that would make this better, I think, because you could micro it and just buff up your army, and it does give move speed too to the units, the special abilities. So I think that would be nice, but the fact that it has to get all the way there to auto something, use its attack, I think that limits it in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Good. Move on.
Good with that?
All
I
right.
think so.
The Draugr. The Draugr, honestly, I think here's the context with what I would rate the Draugr is that we have Freyr, who is the only primary god who has access to the Draugr, who has access to the Rock Giant, and who has access to Fanfear. And from what I can tell, the only myth unit that you get from Freyr that just isn't being masked, isn't being used, isn't effectively doing any damage is the Draugr. I feel like it's just worse troll. It doesn't have CC. It has to get really short range to do significant damage, and I feel like it's so slow that it can also get hero sniped despite being ranged. I think I'm putting the Draugr in D tier.
I haven't played against a lot of them, to be honest with you, but that probably is the inclination on why they're not great. Even whoever chooses to play Freyr and pick this path, I don't see them spamming it in later ages. I do see the other heroes, myth units, sorry, that are in this age, but not the Draugr. So I can't give it any reason why it should be higher than D.
I feel like it's nice with the first one you get, but no one's investing in it, and it's not like other units that can reasonably harass in the very early classical age. Like, you get your Minotaur near the villager line, it's going to do significant damage. With these guys, yeah, it's going to get them off it, but you're never killing a villager. Like, you're never actually getting the kill with just one of these guys. You have to have several of them. So for me, it's like, really, how much are you getting outside of a little bit of idle time? And the second there's any hero unit around, they're just dead. They're just chased down and they're dead.
Very good point.
All right. Michael, your favorite unit. Let's hear it.
Man, I'm actually, it's going to pain me to say it, but as much as I love playing the automatons, I think I got to put them in the B tier here. You want to talk about a myth unit that has critical mass. These guys are pretty useless if you just have one or two of them. Once you get a decent sized army, they're really good for fending off an attack, but they really just need enough of them that you can actually repair. You can't play aggressive with them. If you send them to the enemy base and they die, they're way too resource intensive for what it's worth. If you can manage to have a few of them survive and rebuild your army, that's great. But as soon as you get to Heroic Age 2, you get a couple heroes in the mix. They're pretty useless. I think Atlantean is really just a giant game of rock, paper, scissors, and it depends on who you're going against. If you're going against Greeks, I think they are the move. You should start putting a bunch of money into, or a bunch of villagers into gold, get a decent sized automaton army going, and you can have some really solid defenses for a long time with them. But if you're going against Norse or Egyptian, all it takes is a couple priests or a couple heroes, and your entire line is demolished there. So as much as I love them, for that reason, I think B is where they belong. Any thoughts?
And just to add into that, the cost is super cheap, 90
They're
gold.
so
really
cheap.
Beautiful. So cheap.
They're so cheap. Only 6 favor too is insane for a classical age myth unit.
They're definitely cheap, but their strength comes from having a ton of them. So you got to count, if you're building them, you're bulk building them.
Yeah. So
other part too is they're so slow though. Is the only other thing I was going to add. They're a very slow unit.
They are slow, but I don't think that's too much of a handicap because they're really a defensive play. Like I said earlier, you can't play super aggressive with them because if you lose them in enemy territory, you're not recovering them.
One of the things I was just thinking about, Michael, I was going to say we should bump this down to C, and then I had this dream that popped up, and it was that I could play a Norse god and have the automatons in my army. And
that would be
the fact that my infantry can build the infrastructure inside the base while my siege weapons just chill and heal themselves, that would be the sickest thing ever.
Hey, if they ever do a mod for that, I think automatons go up to S tier. That would be insane.
They would be so good because then the fact they're slow doesn't matter so much because you're posted up next to your infrastructure. You have a base where you're fighting from, so they can just walk right back into the base. And if they commit too far, it's over. I think team games, this one I'm going to be bumping up. I don't know. It might be C, even though it's cheap. They are slow. You can't go too aggressive with them outside of team games. I don't know. Jacob, what do you guys think?
I have strong opinions. I don't think you can put this in the B tier. I think it has to be C. And the reason why is two reasons.
Jay, you're
It's
not
just
going to
like-
let any Atlanteans above C. I think that's just how it's going to go.
No. You know what? I think you're going to be very surprised where I put the Calidria.
Okay.
But besides that, I think that like automaton is really good for defensive, but the fact they can't do anything offensive. Look at the rest of the units we have: Centaurs, Sphinx, Minotaurs, even the Cyclops. What we put in C, they are all so good at engaging early, taking that first fight. You can't even take the first fight with 2 automatons. It doesn't give you any benefit unless you're hit a critical mass of 8+. Then you can talk about maybe using them on the defensive if you want to. But even if you lose that fight, they're completely useless.
Oh, yeah,
for
I
their
totally
ability to
agree.
repair.
Yeah,
So
once you lose them in the fight, it's way too many resources you burned on it.
Yeah, and then the second part is, do I really think a Cyclops is less impactful in a game compared to automaton?
That's why I pulled it
can't
down. Yeah,
easily say that.
I feel like I agree. I feel like team games. I'm gonna put this up higher because I do feel like in team games, Michael, we've played so many successful team games where that's what you do is you just hit critical mass and we take care of the rest. And then once you have it, we just wreck. You know, like there's nothing anyone can do to stop our push, especially when I'm on Norse and I can build up the infrastructure with it. So I think team games it's gonna bump up, but yeah, I agree. These other units, I think I'd rather have them.
I mean, I think Mike brings up a good point. They're really good for defensive units, and when you're going automatons, you're probably going Gaia, so you're scaling that economy up.
Yeah.
Like if you can survive till late game, then you're gonna switch myth units, but these are the ones that get you there.
All right, Michael, I'm gonna let you make final call. Where do you think?
I want to bump them back up to B for that
All
exact
right.
reason Jake just
I
said.
can't do it.
Atlantean is all about
can't do it.
scale. I mean,
No,
we'll
Jay,
do
we
our
have to
final
respect-
arguments later
We have
on.
to respect our Atlantean representative. Michael
man.
plays these all the time. Like he knows how good these units are. You know,
The
like
thing is, Atlantean economy is just so strong
Let's-
early on, and if you can protect that properly, you're good. Go ahead, Jay.
Okay, let's talk about this then. Okay. If you were an Egyptian player or even a Norse player, effectively having a couple heroes like priests makes these units completely useless. The range and the speed on a priest just makes it to where this unit is absolutely has no impact against an Egyptian player.
No, but on the defensive, you can pull them back within the TC, and Priest can't chase too far. You know, so
Right,
like if you play defensively well, you can defend against Priest because they're not going to damage your villagers enough. They're not going to take down towers or infrastructure. So I kind of agree that like even in that matchup, the worst case scenario, defensively you can still play these guys.
I
Do you think
totally
that
see your
the
point, though,
Cyclops-
Jay. Yeah, like a wave of priests is annihilating these guys, but like Matt said, if you're turtling early on in the game, I think these are a decent choice for just trying to econ boom and get you to the next phase.
So my last question before we move on is: do you think a Cyclops has more impact in a game, and even say 5 or 6 or 7 automatons together?
No,
Well,
I don't
think
think
that's
so.
the comparison because you actually need to compare almost 4 automatons to 1 Cyclops when you look at the cost. Like the favorite, or it's about 3, right? We got about 3
Three.
automatons to 1 Cyclops. That's the comparison point.
Well, actually, 2.5, because if you no, you're right, 3.
No,
3.
yeah, it's
Well,
about. It's about
I mean,
3.
you also
Favor
gotta
is
count-
exactly 3.
When the Cyclops
Yeah.
dies, he stays dead. If you manage to fend off an attack and you got these dead guys there, they're coming back, and your army's twice as strong for the next attack.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those gray areas where it's like, are we comparing buying the unit or the fact that you get one when you age up? Because I would rather have a Cyclops when I age up than an automaton, you know? But
Yeah,
if you're
That's
purchasing
a good
these
point.
units, I feel like I'd rather be purchasing these units.
yeah, and one thing to call out too, if you're playing Chronos, whenever you advance, you get double whatever the
Yeah,
myth unit is. So
exactly.
you start with 2 automatons. But I see your points there, Jay. They're valid, and I think it's really a rock paper scissors of who you're going against determines their value.
Okay,
Fair enough. Okay,
we'll leave
we'll
it
live with
there.
that for now.
Caladria, what do we think, Mike?
Oh, so I'm interested to hear what Jay has to say about bumping
Yeah,
the
sure.
Caladria. It sounds like you're about to go pretty high with this. My thoughts on it before I give an actual letter ranking are the Caladria are pretty strong. They're a little expensive. You know, they cost some wood and gold to get out. You need a decent chunk of them for them to actually manage a fight and actually make a difference, but they're so squishy. You get a couple archers up there. I think they've got like 125 health. It's next to nothing. Like if you have archers pointed at them, you can take them out of a fight almost immediately, unless you're playing really defensively. And in order for them to actually be there actively healing the fight while it's going on, they kind of have to be involved in it. So I'm going to go with a B tier for these ones as well. I'm interested, Jay, to hear what you have to say about it, though.
Yeah, so Caladria, I've watched a lot of pro players actually play with this unit, and as well as just like in general, just games that we've casted. And I think Caladria should be a top of B or a bottom of A. I've seen such effective uses of this unit, both in fights as well as out of fights, being able to do quite a bit. In contrary, I don't think you need that many of them. I think 2 or even 3 at most is enough to be able to effectively change the scale of a battle by doing the slows when you're catching up with your cavalry or other units, or just healing outside of a fight and being just as effective as a priest would if you have enough of them on the map. Yes, you are spending 100 wood and 25 gold, but still the cost itself is pretty low compared to most myth units. But the utility with the slow, what I've seen being able to catch units in the chase of a fight, extremely beneficial. And I've seen very great uses of this unit. So top of A or top of B all the way before the Anubite, or behind Centaur on top of or the back end of A.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. I think if you get enough of them in a fight, it can make a pretty big difference too. I'm willing to go between A or B with those. I think they need the right army to support for sure, though.
I also think
I wouldn't put them in front of the Centaur though.
I think there's an element to the right player as well, because what you can do with this unit in the classical age is dodge ranged attacks. If you micro the Caladria, it has 6 movement speed, and we're seeing this in some of the games we're watching, Jay, where they're just constantly moving the Caladria back and forth with 6 move speed, and like throwing axemen always miss if that Caladria is moving. Toxtos will very often miss if that Caladria is moving, and you can micro this in a way where it's almost invincible until you get what's the tech called where you get 99% accuracy. I forget the name of the tech, but until you get that in the heroic age, you just miss everything versus the Caladria. So I think that the ability to keep it alive if you choose so, and then heal, and then really the slowdown to counter all of these S tier units that are fast enough to get in and out, to catch them out and actually be able to kill that unit, I think it's got to be an A tier.
Yeah, that's fair. Dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say I've definitely seen them counter those early raiding parties when you've got like 3 horses going in. They just pick one out, slow it down, and then they pick it off before it can disengage.
I would say Centaur is better though. I would still.
We'll come back to that. We'll come back to that. Let's do Prometheus or Promethean.
Yeah, I mean, you choose Prometheus, you get some Prometheans. I think these guys are really good for aggressive. You know, they're just as cheap as automatons. You got to put the money into meat instead of gold, but you can crank out a bunch of them and start doing some early raids. I think they're not nearly as strong as like the Valkyrie or the Sphinx in terms of harassing villagers and actually putting them off, but you can disrupt an area. And, you know, if they send an army to kill them, they just split in half and you've got twice as many problems to deal with there. So I would put these guys up as an A for early harass, especially if you're going with Kronos and you want to just crank a few out and play aggressively.
Yeah, that's where I was going to go with it, is in particular, if you weren't playing Kronos, I'd put this in C tier. But with Kronos in particular, combined with the fact that he basically has the fastest possible classical age timing in the game, and you can get these Prometheans out immediately and time shift a temple next to the opponent's base, and you've got 2 Prometheans in your base at 3:15 into the game. Like, that's incredibly oppressive, but it is tied to the primary god, because I think 2 versus 1 makes a big difference inside that early aggression. But I agree. I think this is an A tier unit.
I don't disagree it's an A tier, but I do think it's B tier only unless you're Kronos, which I mean, it's just
we don't see people picking Prometheus unless they're playing Kronos. Yeah, I mean, it's tough. You know, that's what's so tough about these tier lists is, are we factoring in, the bonus tech or the god-specific interactions? I feel like we kind of have to rate them at their peak potential, right? You know, because that's when you're going to when you're going to invest in them.
Yeah, and so one more. Yeah, go ahead, Jay.
No, I was just going to say, if we're doing that, like the ideology that Matt's talking about, then it should be A tier.
Yeah, and I know these are myth unit alone rankings, but I do want to just call out the god power you get with this is pretty huge because bumping Atlanteans up to heroes early on is kind of an expensive thing to divert a lot of resources to, and to only have to spend one favor and then two favor, like it's a really cheap one for Valor to be able to upgrade automatically to heroes. So if you couple that with Prometheus or with Prometheans, you can get a pretty decent siege going on early on.
Yeah, I agree. And they're cheap, right? So the fact that you have so much of a health pool, even though they're individually not that tanky, the fact, they all split, and with Chronos, you can get the 2-for-1. For how much they cost, how easy it is to get favor on the Atlanteans, and their potential for early rushing, yeah, I think A tier makes sense. So do we want to order these now before we go on to Age 2?
Sure, why not?
So one thing is, I feel like I'm going to put the Ravens towards the back of C. Actually, no, I don't know how I feel about that. Maybe behind the Cyclops, though. I feel like Ravens are going to go right there.
I think that's fair. I think I put Centaur above Calidria. I think the early game rush that you're able to achieve aggressively is just not matched by the utility that you're going to get there, Calidria.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah, I mean, they had to nerf them for a reason, and they're still pretty good.
Okay, I'll accept that. I think
What do you
Automaton's
think
the
about
worst to B tier. I think that's right.
Yeah. What about Trolls above Anubites?
It's tough because this is a tough one because I feel like even though Thor has been popping off, Trolls are still quite new. And I haven't seen a lot of games of people really, outside of the one that I showed, of people really heavily investing in these. Whereas we've seen in tournament games, people pulling out a new bite and actually doing damage on the enemy's villager line, actually getting kills on villagers. And you can't really do that with Trolls unless you're way ahead already. Like, they're not hitting villagers. So I still think a new bite's probably better.
I like it. Let's move on to the next age.
All right, Jay, kick us off.
All right. Yeah, I'm gonna start with Nemenian Lion actually. Against your order. I love these units so much. And I think they're S tier. Stun, if you have a few of them and you can micro them effectively, is one of the most effective abilities any myth unit. Its multipliers are pretty tame, to be honest with you. It's just a 1x against myth, half x against heroes. But it's extremely nice, and it does snare them for a good 3 seconds by 50%, as well as the second that's a hard stun. They're relatively tanky. They have good speed. I don't think that there is a weakness to this unit besides just outright getting spammed by heroes, obviously, like any other myth unit. But Nemenian Lions are just very, very, very good units.
I agree. I've seen really good use when people start microing these to delay the active ability one at a time. You can stun lock the opponent's front line for a solid 6 seconds. And that's like super powerful inside of fights like that, especially if you have good counter units out. You can just do free damage without getting hit back. I agree. I think it's an S tier unit.
And not to be that god powers matter, but you get cursed with it, which I know you guys rate so highly. And I mean, I've since changed my opinion. It's not C tier. It's probably B tier or A tier. It's not S like you guys think, but definitely a good combination of having a very good myth unit and a very good god power together.
Any arguments against that?
I mean, they're just so solid when they're with your full army that the stun lock. I mean, they don't have any really potential by themselves, I guess, but I don't really know what other unit would have a better. Yeah, keep them in S.
All right. What do you think of the Hydra?
Before we do Hydra, I'm actually going to go to Manticore. I play a lot of Man. I think it's a very good unit. I put in A tier. The fact that its ability actually has a unique thing. We just pull it up to make sure I get it right. Spine Volley is what it's called. It does 2x against other myth units, which makes it very effective in the heroic age to be able to counter a lot of what you see with other strong units that are in the game at this like age 3 point. I think it's very good to be able to mass 3 or 4 of these things and just tear apart armies and get that special down on even regular units for that matter. I love this unit. I don't know if it's S tier by any means. Maybe some people might contest it being S tier, but I think it's very, very good. If I'm not playing Nemenian Lions, I'm going to be playing Manticores for sure.
Yeah, I'll say on the Manticore side, for Atlantean traders, one of my favorite god powers, and I don't know how many times I've stolen a Manticore and it's turned the fight in my favor. Like it's a huge one to be able to get on your side.
Yeah, especially H3. You're right. Yeah. Before it
Yeah,
gets to the mythic units.
And when you look at the total range, the Manticore is actually quite high. So you've got the unique tech that you can get with it, but 16 range outside of the Petsuchos, the Draugr, Wadjet, and Troll, it's by far the top of the table for range with much better speed than everything that it has a lower range than. So you can actually get this into your army as a reliable backline that won't get caught out. So I agree. I think these were really bad in Extended Edition and Titans, but I think they're actually a really good unit at this point.
Yeah, they did some great buffs to it.
I really like how if you go Manticores, you can get the Temple of Healing upgrade, and it just makes them that much stronger of a defensive hold. Like it's pretty hard to crack in the enemy's base when they've got those things just pumping out damage and healing.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to put it. Cost, I mean, it is kind of expensive, but it's wood, so like that does kind of balance itself out. Kind of interesting that it's 5 population. Actually, I never considered that. That's a pretty high population cost for the Manticore, if that's correct.
Yeah, it is actually quite high compared to other units. But I mean, I guess there has to be some trade-off for every myth unit, and that's probably what they're using for the Manticore, the pop caps.
I just want to see. It says 4 in the game. So I think the wiki's wrong here. Yeah, and hopefully the game's right, because I feel like 5, it does seem high for this unit. I feel like none of the backline units ever have that high of a population cost. And you can see, yeah, like the Draugr is only 2, the Satyr is only 3, Troll, Wadjet only 3, Draugr only 2. But yeah, I think
that'd be crazy.
I think A is the right place for it. What about the Hydra?
All right. Now the Hydra. Honestly speaking, I have only taken Hydras like twice, maybe 3 times since I've actually played a lot of Greek games this season. And I don't really like the way a Hydra feels unless you're playing against certain situations. And those situations would be like playing against Egypt when they have a minions god power that is going to come up, or something where you can get the heads to multiply quickly. Or you're going to win fights no matter what, to where you can get the max 5 heads. With a 1-head Hydra, I can't rake it higher than an or a Manticore. A 5-head would be comparable to me to like a Manticore or higher. But that being said, I have to put it in B because I think they're very slow and there are a lot of counterplay situations to go against a Hydra. But a fully 5-headed Hydra is very, very strong by all means. But I don't think it's necessarily better than the other 2.
Matt, are you able to get heads from killing like animals like deer and pigs with the Hydra?
Yes, you can, and that doesn't provide you as much. But one thing I wanted to call out is that if we look at the top level of play, a very common strategy for any Norse god is to build houses around goldmine or hunt, in order to just scout those permanently on the map, because it gives you then enough vision to know if the opponent is going there and gathering from that resource spot. And it's only 50 wood cost. You have plenty of downtime with your infantry to build them. But I've seen games now where if the opponent has Hydra, you can stack up the heads on those houses. If they're left out there with no defense around them, you just start stacking up the heads. And bronze in particular with the Hydra makes these things incredibly tanky.
Oh, yeah.
And if you do have a couple heads stacked up, you can do incredible damage with these. And by the time bronze is over, they're both 5 heads. Like the two that you got out by that point, like they're going to be doing crazy damage to the opponent.
I didn't take bronze into account, but I probably should, just because of the situation that you're going to be playing with these Hydra. That would probably bump it up to an A tier for me, but I still value Manticores a little bit more in team fights.
Yeah, I'm curious, what's the speed on these guys?
Yeah, as cool as they are, they really do slow down your army. And if you're playing against Egyptians, I'm just going to put like 3 priests on them from a distance. The Hydra's not even going to make it to them.
Pretty good health pool, though, with decent resistances. It's not incredible, but pretty respectable what you get with them. But yeah, slowness isn't great. I don't know. It's tough for me because we don't really see a lot of people go through Dionysus, right? Like, it just doesn't happen that often. So it is kind of hard to rank these. I feel like they're probably a B tier unit. That's I think that's where I stand. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I'd say B as well. They're good if you can ramp it up, and there's nothing quite like that intimidation factor of a five-headed Hydra coming at you. But it's so slow; it takes a while to get there. And yeah, I'd say B is accurate. Also, not so fun Easter fact or Easter egg for it. If you're playing Atlantean and you steal a five-headed Hydra, it goes back to one head, which is
I'm gonna be
very
honest,
fun.
that's bullshit, and I'm going to
I
be
know.
submitting a feedback form and a Reddit post, and probably calling some people directly and saying we need to change that.
Microsoft, why are you effing this up for everybody?
I
I guess I open this up to you guys. Is this B tier or is this A tier? I have a hard time.
I'd say
I-
B personally.
Yeah.
We got Grass and Groom in the chat too saying he's arguing against our Draugr being the worst unit, but I just can't see. I can't see a different unit that I would take. I feel like the reason to go through Ullr is not because of the Draugr. That's not why people are doing it. It's not the strength that you're getting. It's getting the early Asgardian Bastion up and being able to get several very early in the game. And I don't see people playing a lot of these. You maybe get one or two as backline with extra favor, but I'd rather have the Troll in that situation after seeing what it can do. And probably the Wadjet too. I feel like the Wadjet can do decent damage.
Yo, shout out to Grass. Grass is competing in the Underworld Showdown. He's a phenomenal player. The youngest actually in our tournament pool. Shout out to Grass and make sure to watch his content and catch him out in the Underworld Showdown on October 20th.
Yeah, October 20th. We're starting early in the US time zones, planning on 9 a.m. Central Time for the first game to kick off. Matchups going to be shouted out later this week for everyone to see what the matchups are. But let's get back to the tier list. Jake, what do you think about Petsushos?
Ooh, Peshushos. I don't know how to pronounce their name. I'm just going to call them laser gators because that's what they are. These guys, especially if you get the upgrade, I'm pretty confident have the longest range in the game out of any unit, which is kind of nice being able to, I mean, they're slow, but being able to just get like 5 of them, have them all point at one unit and just have the power of the sun to melt that unit immediately without even being in like range of sight is nutty.
It is very satisfying.
The problem with them is they do cost gold, which is kind of a hard price for any Egyptian. 200 pulling away from your army.
Not cheap too, and the upgrade's not cheap too. I'm looking to find the exact cost, but yeah, they are expensive units.
Right, that's the thing is if you want to get critical mass with them, it's going to be a hefty cost, and that's one that might not even be worth it. I like these guys, but I'm gonna keep them B tier, I think.
So I would have put them C tier originally, but one thing that I really like that they changed with these in a past patch is that they had crush damage and they changed it to divine damage, which is for anyone who has followed us from League, that's your true damage equivalent. And I liked that change a lot because you can actually use these as pretty effective pseudo hero units for longer range heroes because they have a multiplier against myth units as well, and plus the divine damage, they actually can do really well for shredding enemy myth units. So I think they're conditionally good if your opponent's myth units are slower than the Petsushos, but outside of that, if there's something like the Sphinx or an enemy line, I don't think they're quite as effective. But C or B tier is kind of where I'm thinking. I don't know, what do you guys think?
That's a fair placement. I would say either C or very, very low B. I mean, either way, I think I would be happy with that. I will say this too. I've seen pros do, again, when you're talking about the pro scene, they do some crazy things with this unit, actually.
So I think it could be B. I mean, it does do pretty good damage, right? If you get enough of them out, they're just quite slow. All right, next one here we've got is the Rock. Controversial unit. I personally really like the changes they made to the Rock. I thought this unit was way too OP in the original game. Just the fact that you could pull units in and out. That the Petsushos was immediately way better because you can keep it safe with the Rock. But I like the change that there's a bit of downtime, and once people have gotten used to actually landing and garrisoning units and getting off quickly, I could see the use case for this. I do have a clip. Getting back to the Sphinx, this is a game between Soldier and Gather the Berry, where he has been terrorizing Soldier on Hades with these Sphinx fully upgraded for the entire game. And there was this situation where he's able to get the Sphinx like out. They're completely inside of a dead end. But then there's a rock waiting out there, gets him, and this rock could have just got out of here. But I think what happened is that Gather the Berry forgot that Achilles is now also a ranged unit, so he just leaves the rock here. Unfortunately, it does just fall down and go off the side of the map. But I could see the potential in this unit actually being really good on certain maps where you could get that quick evac for a slower mass or a myth unit mass, you know, something that's harder to evac. I could see the potential, so I feel like it's C tier because it's really hard to get good uses out of it, but they do exist. I think they exist.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely nerfed these guys from the old school, just that landing time. One thing that does piss me off is if you send them to a location in which they aren't able to land, so you click on a tree or on a mountain, they won't move. They have to be instructed to fly somewhere where they actually can set down. So sometimes I have to micro them like a little harder than I would like.
Any arguments against C tier?
Man. I like it, the fact it can scout the map. There's good things there, but like I've seen a couple games where they're just not. I've never seen an effective use, and like I know you're showing me a good usage, quote unquote, of it, but like keep in mind that was just Achilles at the time. There was no ranged use, nothing. The durability is there with some health, but not really with the stats behind it. A small part of me wants to put this over C.
Yeah, you're definitely still having a little bit of audio issues, Jay, just kind of cutting in and out. I don't know if there's anything we can do about it right now, or if you want to just revert back to your headset mic for the time being, we can kind of mix it in live. Jay just got to do mic, everyone. We're prepping for the tournament.
Yes, we're prepping for the tournament. I made an adjustment, so let's see if this works, and if not, we will jump back to the headset until we figure out how this will work a little bit better.
Yeah,
I think Jay brings up a good point, though. Yeah. These guys are pretty squishy, and we're in the state of the game in which range... like hero archers for the Atlanteans, a lot of the archers for other like throwing axemen can kind of mow these guys down pretty easily.
Yeah, I agree. I think the big use today for them, right, is they scout and allow a lot of the Egyptian god powers require vision of your enemy's base specifically, and they're pretty useful for that if you happen to get them. But we don't see the actual like carry capacity used that often.
Yeah, I think they're great if you're not in solo play. If you're playing with a group of people and you can couple a couple other, maybe some crush, like some Scarabs or some Behemoths, and get those quickly across the map, they're huge, but their utility goes drastically down in solo play.
Yeah, I agree with that. Let's leave them there.
All right. Which brings us to Scarabs. Yeah, baby. These guys are terrific. So good they even got their own special relic that gives them a little more crush damage. But these guys, I'm putting them solid A tier, maybe S. I don't know if you guys disagree with this one, but the siege ability with them is terrific. The fact that they got that splash damage on death, so if you actually have units whacking them, they still get a lot of damage off there. I love these guys.
Yeah, Jake, I think one of my favorite plays is seeing you do Scarabs and then Shifting Sands, and all of a sudden the enemy's base is just being obliterated. It's so fun to watch.
And just to give a little counter talk to it, it is the slowest myth taken, actually.
Is it the slowest? I know Behemoths are kind of very similar on the Atlantean side. I'd be curious to see the speed between them. I know Behemoths have a 3 speed.
We'll look that up right now, but if I'm not mistaken, I do think it is slower than the as well.
Well, one thing I'm curious about with these is if you delete them, do they do the damage?
Sacrifice the Scarab to explode.
Well, what I'm looking at is the numbers, and 60 Divine, that one-shots villagers, am I right? I believe the base villager has less than 60 health, or is it exactly 60? I don't know if anyone can look that up, but if they do, I mean, I can see these things just being tactical nukes. If you don't catch them running up to your gold mine and you can delete the entire villager gold mine, I feel like this actually might be really good, but I feel like I need to test it to see exactly if the villagers die in one hit or if you need to get 2 out there, because that makes a huge difference.
So 2 things. Villagers are 50 health.
Yeah, standard, so we one-shot villagers. Right. Okay, we one-shot villagers.
You're a madman and a genius, Matt.
Okay, we gotta test it. We gotta test it. Keep talking, though, Jay.
Well, while we're talking about that and doing this test, because I do think it's worth testing. The second thing is they actually, Behemoth is slower by 0.2. It was the second slowest myth unit in the game. That being said, I think that speed slowness is just really that's what has to keep it out of S tier or high A. Maybe low tier A, yeah, because it's a fantastic siege unit. You don't need any other siege units, in fact, if you have this. But
I will say
I
it
don't
is
know.
on topic of the slowness. It is a shame that you can't get scarabs and rocks, so you know they're both the same age, because that would be a nasty combo, being able to transport them over and then drop them at the enemy base.
We're gonna test
Yeah,
this right now. We're getting there.
That's where I think the multiplayer comes in handy, Jake. If you have a rock coupled with them, it's a deadly combo. But standalone, they are pretty hard to move. And I feel the same thing on the Atlantean side with Behemoths, which we'll get to in a bit.
Hey, send a villager or somebody to scout out the.
I got a priest going. I'll get another villager going. I don't need him. I'm on the fastest mode that you can do here, but I guess I'm still waiting for the age up. Let's get some houses.
Yeah, it's the age ups.
Yeah, because I'm thinking about it. If you could do that, dude, this thing actually might be like a really good unit. But we have to know. Do you think I test on the deer? Is that the best call?
Yeah. I mean, I wish you could just with you, but
Oh, my pharaoh's already back. Oh, I aged. All right, so let's get my
These
armor
villagers
up.
are working overtime.
Dude, they're going crazy actually. All right,
go.
get the armory up. Sphinx is going out. I kind of wish we could test rain also too to see if it actually does work for woodline, because I feel like it's kind of ambiguous. All right, so we get our scarabs. And I think I'm gonna send it out to the deer. It should theoretically hit deer too, right?
if it doesn't hit the deer, then just put one up and go to the villagers just to make sure, so we know for a fact.
Okay.
Works on deer, it works on villagers. That's for sure.
Does this?
It might be faster to have the villagers run over and build a temple in their base.
Good point. Good point. The thing is, I think I have this on Titan AI, so they're probably going for my base pretty soon. I mean, they've already aged up to classical. All right.
What's up with your score, man? Why are you so bad?
Let's see what happens. Okay, it did do damage. Yeah, look at that. But it didn't do full damage. And it looks like you have to be like the closer you are, the more damage it does. Because this deer was affected way less, which is pretty
To be
interesting.
safe, let's test on their villagers.
Yeah, I'll get a couple
and
out.
order them to self-destruct.
Can I do repeating here? No. Get another temple going. This is a good test. All right, so now we'll see how long it takes these. Oh, is he stuck in here? No.
That's fantastic.
Hey, another reason. It's so
some
bad that it can't even do what it needs to do. Oh no.
Oh, it does. It does do damage. All right, I gotta find a villager line. Wait, these things don't feel that slow, actually. These are kind of like quick. Oh, wait, no, I'm playing on game speed fast.
You're on
yeah,
lightning,
I'm
yeah.
on game speed fast.
Look at that priest
lost
go down
him.
against.
Oh, here's villagers. Let's go. It doesn't one-shot, though.
Oh no, it doesn't one shot because they're defenses. Yeah. So you need to.
Wow, but it does divine damage. The wiki must be wrong. If we
I'm not sure. Maybe there's some resistance even with the divine damage.
What
they
on
have 55 health. Yeah, how does that not one shot? That's what's confusing me.
are they have more defenses on like Titan AI?
No, Titan AI is the best that plays fair. This must just be wrong. I don't know if we can actually see it in the tech tree here. I don't think it doesn't give us numbers, so we'll have to follow up on that one, because I feel like if it's actually 60 divine damage, right, it should one-shot that villager line, in which case I'd put it higher. But after seeing that, it's going down. I think it's going down to C tier for me after that.
Even as a siege unit, you're gonna put it down to C?
That's harsh.
I think when I look at the other siege myth units, they're all better, is kind of how I see it. Mountain Giant is way better. Battle Boar is way better. Rock Giant's way better. I even think the Behemoth might be better. I think as far as siege myth units go, it's the least effective.
I mean, you're not wrong about that. Put it that way.
All right, there's no compelling argument, Jake.
I'm hurt.
I think the one argument is you can get the quick mobility with them with shifting sands, right? So you don't necessarily, if you build up a bunch of them, you could basically launch a nuke in the enemy space.
I'll let our Egyptian main make the final call here. What do you think, Jake?
I mean, I would put them in B tier just because the next guy I'm going with Scorpion Men. kind of think they're below Scarabs. These guys have some good poison damage, but I don't think there's really too much special about them.
Well, I will say one thing that is special about them is the wood cost.
Super low.
I think it's a very cheap wood cost, and it's also just something with Egyptian you have to watch out for, is like anything that costs wood is what is like hugely beneficial to what you can produce. So I feel like you can actually build these quite effectively versus how much the Scarab cost. And the poison damage
Also, the
seems
speed
like
is
it's
good
pretty
too.
strong.
Speed is 0.5 or 5.
Yeah, the speed is fast, and let me check because I believe it's an AoE poison damage, right? For the special attack. Yeah, poisons a few human units around it, so it does do it in the poison 16 divine damage. Like, it's pretty solid poison damage. The fact that these are fast, you can get them as part of your regular army. I think these units are better than the Scarab for sure. I would put them above the Pet Sushos.
I didn't realize they had AoE poison. I thought it was single target.
Yeah, because I know you're always going with the other two gods, right? You're always picking one of these two.
Yeah, I mean, I never really go Scorpion Men.
I don't know if I put it before the laser gazers, but
I'll settle there. I think it's got to be above Scarab for me.
I mean, it is a pretty high favor cost. I know you said wood, but you are looking at 24 favor, whereas, you know, the Scarab's going to be only 18.
It does feel like favor isn't usually a big restriction for the Egyptians. Especially since if you're playing if you're playing any of them, they have pretty significant boost on empowering monuments or just having them near your military. So don't you always have like kind of a ton of favor playing Egyptian?
I mean, you do. I think Egyptian, you have the most lenient like favor economy of any of this pantheon, so you can just stack it if you want. But I mean, 24 favor still. Like, is that the highest in the game? I think
it's probably 28. Up there. But for the Egyptian specifically, I kind of like that it's expensive in the favor category, because I feel like then you can kind of produce these incredibly cheaply because you don't need much wood and you're getting the favor passively. Let's see, where is it? So it was 25, you said?
It's 24. It's 24. I'm looking at the Colossus, which is 35 actually. So I guess there are some later age ones that are going to cost a lot more.
22 favor.
Oh, I'm looking at in-game.
Oh, okay. Good call. Let's go back to that. I feel like maybe we should be checking that more than we actually check the wiki. I do feel like there's a lot of things that are legacy on the wiki from Titans that haven't been updated yet.
That's probably what happened.
Yeah, okay. So we were looking at, which unit was it?
Scorpion.
Yeah, Scorpion. It definitely does do the area of effect damage, though. Yeah, 24 favor. That's a lot. That is a lot of favor, and it is even more wood in the client, actually. So yeah, this unit is not as cheap as it used to be. All right, I'll agree. I'll move it back down. I'll give it over the Scarab. I still think it's B tier, but it's not as cheap as it used to be.
All right, the Norse.
Yeah, so I have pretty strong opinions about those. I think a lot of people are going to think I'm crazy, and I think it's a lot of people that haven't played a lot of Norse on Retold. And I think that the Frost Giant's a B tier myth unit. And in Legacy, I think this is S tier immediately. It was one of the best myth units in the game, especially if you can get a mass of them. They're just absolutely incredible. But I feel like in Retold, you can snipe these pretty easily. They're not as, catastrophic to the opponent as any of the other three that you can get inside of the Heroic Age in the Norse. Like, these are going to do way more impact to a fight. And really isolating one unit, unless you can pick like a really good myth unit to freeze and you micro that in the Frost Giant, I just don't think they're as good as they used to be.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. They got nerfed really hard.
All right, I'll leave it there then. We'll just move to Mountain Giant, which I'm putting in the A tier. I think when it comes to siege myth units, this is the best one by far. I think it does the most damage. It's durable enough that it can retreat from a fight, and with the Norse setup, you always have that base that you can retreat to. So just the way that you can use it, respectable move speed, incredible health pool. I think it's probably the best siege myth unit out there.
Yeah, Norse units do have a lot less of a distance to have to retreat to if they pull back, just because the forward base is so common.
Yeah, and you look at this health pool too, like, look at this. This is crazy numbers that you're working with on this unit. And it's slow, but it's not that slow. You know, it's not as slow as a Colossus. It's way faster than that.
Oh, you fully upgraded, that is.
Yeah, and you have to go through hell to get that upgrade. You've got two. You've got the Jotun upgrade, and then you've got the one through hell to get the maximum. But even your baseline being 1200, you know, that's a very significant health pool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, that's fair.
I'm gonna move on to Battle Boar, which I also think is A tier. Very versatile unit. We've seen a couple games, Jay, do that crazy game that we cast between Samaro and who is he playing?
Atreus.
Matreus, yeah, Samaro and Matreus. That game, so many really good Battle Boar usages just to disrupt the enemy army. The knockback, it doesn't do a ton of damage, but just the amount of time it takes units to land, it's basically like having a shockwave every fight per Battle Boar. You know, like it's actually really strong if you get them in good position. And then it can also double as a siege weapon. So I think that versatility makes it an A tier unit for sure.
I'm just wondering if I'd rather have a Frost Giant. I probably wouldn't. I think you're right. Yeah.
Any
Why
arguments?
why would you prefer to knock up the enemy units when you could just explode yourself and kill them all with you?
Well, the damage is about the same, to be honest, right? This is only 60 divine damage, and then you also get the CC effect. Do people in RTS use the term CC also? I don't know. Is that the right terminology? We're so used to that.
Yeah, that terminology works for every other game. So
I feel like there's also not much crowd control in the Age of Empires series.
The Mini Lions?
No. Like outside of Age of Mythology, like just the regular Age of Empires series.
Age of Empires.
Is there
Age of Empires
like
doesn't do it. Rise of Nation doesn't do it.
Yeah.
None of the other RTS I've ever played has it. So yeah.
Okay, well, I value crowd control very highly, just like in League of Legends, and that's why I think the Rock Giant is an S tier unit. This guy's special ability is so ridiculous. You get to taunt all of the units around you, and it's only a 30-second cooldown. It's Rammus. You're playing Rammus, basically, and you get crazy resistances, and it's 7 seconds long. So basically what you're doing is the enemy's front line do no damage in the fight because this unit becomes so incredibly tanky that you just win the fight and you can't get the units off of it.
Dang, that's a god power in itself.
That's what
really
I'm saying.
good.
It's crazy good. I mean, imagine, just for the MOBA equivalent, imagine if Rammus had an AoE taunt that lasted 7 seconds. Like, okay, you just win the game immediately every time. Like, there's no counterplay to that. And that's basically what you have with this unit. And obviously there's more units on the map fighting each other in this fight, but the fact that the radius is pretty good. It's not that small. You can get easily 10 plus units taunting on it. So I think it's got to be S tier.
What's its health when it doesn't have those bonus stats?
Yeah, let's take a look. So
Looking at 900 according to the AOM.
900, but its resistances are significantly higher than other Siege Myth units.
So the other thing I'll point out is you're almost feeling like you're getting a Mythic Age Myth unit in the Heroic Age, is what I feel like with Rock Giants. I think that they should have been, honestly, a Mythic tier unit. It's fantastic.
And one change I'd like to see with the game is that if you go through Hell, is that you would be able to, I'll just get out of this, let's talk through it, but if you go through Hell, there's the upgrade that you get where you can research any giant. You currently don't get Rock Giant from that upgrade, and I would actually like to see that. I'd like to lean into that as your Mythic Age choice, is that you have access to all of the giant units, including Rock Giant. And also that way, then we have this unit no longer just locked to Freyr, right? Right now, you have to play Freyr to play this. I think that'd be a nice way to expand this new DLC content into some of the other gods without removing content from those gods.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Okay.
I do think these guys are the best of the big boys for this age, at least.
All right, Mike, you want to talk through Stimp Birds?
I am excited to talk through these. I want to take them out of order how you have them listed, though, because we're talking about all these siege units. I want to start with the Behemoth here.
Good call.
So this guy, I think, especially if you're going with Chronos here, you get one shot really nicely with it. If you do a time shift of your temple out to the enemy's base right as he's spawning, and you get 2 of these granted to you as you advance, it's a pretty strong siege. And especially if you couple it with a couple of Prometheans, one thing I want to call out with them is their armor is absolutely insane. They have 75% pierce armor, 80% crush armor. They're kind of weak for hack armor, but you get a front line of some Prometheans and a couple soldiers in there, and these guys can do some serious damage. They're pretty hard to kill.
Yeah.
What's the base health?
It's pretty low. What's interesting is that the pierce armor is, I think, maybe among the highest. Let's see what we have here. So Colossus is Mythic Age, Nemean Lion, and then it's tied with the Rock Giant. So very high pierce armor. I'm actually kind of surprised the health pool is full so low. I
think that's wrong, actually, because I was playing with them earlier today, and I'm pretty sure it was 650 is what they had.
Yeah, that's got to be wrong. Let's go check.
It's pierce armor.
Yeah, 650. Same pierce armor.
It is the slowest unit, though. It is the slowest unit.
It is slow, but you gotta, again, if you're playing with Kronos, you're already right inside of the enemy's base there. So if you can spawn a third one too while your siege is going on, I mean, you can do some serious damage there. But again, you only get one shot, because if you're trying to do it from your base, yeah, it takes you forever to get across the map with them, and they're really easy to pick off that way.
Michael,
you and me played a game actually together. We played a game like 2 days, 3 days back where, like, I will give it a shout out. I didn't ask for any support unit wise, but you just sent me 2 of these behemoths, and we were able to take out like 4 fortresses with just my army in a team game, and it was immense to just have like 2 of these things on my side of the map.
Yeah, if you can hold the line, give them enough time to get there, they can take care of you.
I'm curious, Mike.
I'm looking at it. I'm looking at it right now. Those guys have 18 crush damage. Scarabs have 75. Like that's not even terrible.
So that's kind of misleading, because they have 18 crush damage, but they have a ×5 multiplier against buildings with that. So it's actually a lot higher.
Okay, I was gonna say that something seemed off there.
Yeah.
Do they show that here? I'm looking for it.
It might be on the wiki.
Yeah, that's the tough part of these, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure how they list those special effects, but you can see that if you actually are playing the game and hover over them.
Did you grab them in here by chance when you were looking at the stats?
Yeah, if you hover over the 12 crush, I got a note there for it.
Wait, how do I get it to open up there?
Oh yeah, I don't know why it's showing it there.
Yeah, I did copy paste it, so maybe not, but that's all right.
Yeah. Oh good. Yeah, that's all I had there, because it does look misleadingly low, but they can annihilate a building.
Yeah, I like when they do multipliers like that, honestly. I think I prefer that to other systems. There was a really nice Reddit thread about this, because for people who have come from AoE 4 and other, of the AoE series, I can't speak for 3 or 1, to be honest. I've never watched either of those to any significant extent, but they have a different system when it comes to armor. Basically, you have flat armor and flat damage. So in AoE 4, if your units have 4 armor and the opposing archer has 6 damage, you're going to do 2 damage to them. And it's capped so that you at least do 1 damage no matter what. So the armory improvements just increase your armor by 1, your damage by 1, and it kind of just becomes a little bit of a game of mathematics with, you have to get this upgrade or this unit that has a higher base but a slower attack speed because you're going to do more effective damage. But I feel like I actually like the multiplier system for different unit types more. I don't know what you guys think about that. Bit of a tangent.
Yeah, I mean, I do think it is a good system, especially with the way they use it against myth heroes, or myth units, heroes, regular units. It's good to have that multiplier system. You never told us where you would put it, actually, Mike.
Yeah, I think I'd put it in the A tier because of how strong that siege can be for that first go. I'd probably put it behind Mountain Giants once we're starting to rank these, because I think you can keep the pressure going with those a little more effectively. But yeah, I think A tier is worth it if you give these guys the proper support. If they're solo, they're not worth it, or they're just really easily picked off, right? But if you can give them a front line and let them do their thing against buildings, they'll just absolutely annihilate a base.
One thing I wanted to ask about these, Michael, because it's kind of a unique interaction where they have incredibly high pierce armor, but Egyptians have a pierce primarily damaged myth unit. Do you feel like Priest and Pharaoh shred through these, or are they actually quite durable? They do still?
Yeah,
okay.
and that's kind of where Atlanteans come in still. It's that game of rock, paper, scissors. They are decent against Priest, but if you stack a couple of them up, just like any other myth unit that moves slow, they're not going to do a whole bunch.
Yeah, I would be
But-
curious if someone shifted from the Chronos Classical Age rush with Prometheans instead to a surprise Heroic Age rush with these two. You know, is the difference significant with what you can do as far as damage to their actual base?
Yeah, that'd be interesting to try a couple games experimenting between the two, because there's also an upgrade with Chronos where you can time shift multiple buildings at the same time. So if you want to get a sentry tower or two in with your temple, you can suddenly apply a lot of the pressure there all at once.
Yeah, I mean, it just sounds fun to do something like that.
Yeah. If it doesn't work, you're left kind of screwed and defenseless. But if it does, you know, it's a very offensive strategy, but it's a fun one to try.
All right, which one's up next?
Let's go with Symphonian Birds next.
Okay.
I think these guys I'm probably going to rank a little lower. They're flying, which is nice, but again, you know, anything that you get ranged, I know we're talking a lot about priests in the Egyptian world against these guys. They get just absolutely annihilated. I mean, their base stats are horrendous. They got 14 pierce attack. Their base HP is 400, and they have very little armor. So they just get blown away, and they're pretty expensive too. It's 200 wood, 50 gold, and 25 favor. So as an Atlantean, I feel like your middle tier unit is one that really matters for how you're going to balance your favor at that point. And these guys can just drain it really quickly. And if you get a couple archers, I think it's worth the same trade-off as what a couple of these birds have. They're great if you're going against someone who doesn't have any ranged units, but once you introduce those into the mix, I feel like they're not worth the pain.
Something I find interesting about the Stymphalian birds is that I agree with you, Mike. I don't think they're that strong, but in particular on water maps, these units are really good because they're kind of just a checkmate for naval battles early into the game.
That is true, but you
know,
also know I don't like playing on water maps personally.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
That is a very valid one. I think any flying myth unit has a lot more. I mean, I'm sure Jake's very pro Pheonixes as well. Once we get into that, but
I mean, if we're
in a water
talking-
map, it's huge.
We're talking water maps. Rocks are going to be bumped up a full tier. I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
like
agreed.
island maps for sure, but like the maps like Anatolia where you just have a bit of water, or I'm blank on the name, but you have a fishing pond behind your base, the enemy has the same. You know, these units are so effective at raiding fishing ships because ship units can't respond to them. They just fly away whenever the enemy's ship units are there. You circle around on land and you attack from a different angle. So if we're talking water maps, I think I'd put these in the A tier, but outside of water maps, I kind of agree. I don't think they're that great. What do you think, like B tier?
I'm thinking C tier, honestly.
C tier? I mean, having them in the Heroic Age, this is the only like significant damage flying unit you can get in the Heroic Age. And I think that for me bumps it up.
I'm willing to debate if you want to bump them up. I just see them as really fragile once you get a couple archers at them. Like they fall pretty easily.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
are very squishy.
I have to say, just to chime in, it needs to be C tier for my opinion for two reasons. One, the speed. A lot of ranged units can catch up to this pretty quickly, so it's not very easy to defend and get away from ranged units. And the second is like with that pierce, as well as a number of other hack armor. All the armor ratios are so low that, like, at least some of the other flying units have some counter with speed, or like the Pheonix, which we'll get to later, with its like special ability. This unit doesn't have any of that. Once you are getting run down, you will be run down with this unit.
It's got 80 crush armor though, so just like every other unit in the game, safe from siege.
Yeah.
Well, I think what
I-
I'm seeing here too that you guys have convinced me is the cost is insanely high for a Heroic
Yeah.
Age unit. I mean,
And if you're trying to crank out like an army of them too, your favor is just depleted very quickly.
yes, I agree. I think C, and if we did specific maps, you know, I would bump it up for very specific maps and then drop it potentially even lower for other maps.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, priests can keep up with these guys. They're not fast enough to really do much.
All right, what do you think of the Satyr?
Yeah, all right. Well, I think satyrs are kind of comparable to the Stymphanian birds, but just all around better, other than the fact they don't have wings. They've got better attack damage. I mean, they've got 6 more pierce in their attacks. Health is pretty much the same. All their armors are a lot stronger than the Stymphanian birds, and they're 5 favor cheaper too. So I would say a B tier for these guys. They're not my favorite to play as, but they have some decent utility if you want to crank out a ranged myth unit.
Yeah, theoretically, they kind of feel like they should fit in the same as Manticores do, right? Like that kind of seems like what they should have.
Yeah, I
but-
feel like I've just seen Manticores make a much bigger difference in fights than I've seen satyrs.
Yeah, and their special
Yeah.
attack, this is the one that has bonus for Smith units, right? So it's kind of similar to the Manticore with that. But when we look at the stats, I guess we'll have to look in the game, but I feel like Manticore's a little bit better speed, a little bit more damage. They sound like they're probably better.
Comparing them to Petshus's Laser Gators, I think Laser Gators are just better all around. It looks like the Satyr has just a little more speed than them, but everything else, I think the Laser Gators are stronger.
Yeah, no, I would agree. And honestly, I wouldn't be opposed to bump them a little further down on the rankings. The only thing is I think they should be above Stymphanian birds. So if we want to bump those even further down, I know we don't have a lot in DNF tier, and I don't know how diverse we're trying to get with these. Yeah, I think that in other religions here, there's better myth units that do the exact same thing.
Yeah, and let's look at the stats really quick. So 250 wood, pretty expensive. 20 favor, pretty expensive. We've got just under 4 speed, and then 20 pierce damage with a rate of fire of 1. Versus the Manticore, lower damage pretty significantly. The same rate of fire. It's got more projectiles though, right? That it's shooting out. The special attacks are pretty similar. Better health pool. I mean, about the same cost, honestly, and more favor. I just feel like for some reason the speed just makes these so much more effective. Like that's a huge speed gap between the two units.
Don't forget the projectile.
The projectiles is huge too.
Yeah, and
It's
then
massive
projectiles because it's effectively 10 more damage, right, total.
Which, if you want to give the birds their credit too, they do 3 projectiles as well, but they're just squishier. So
yeah, well, I agree with these being above the Stimford. I feel like they're B tier. I feel like they're okay. I mean, they're not bad, but I'd rather have the Manticore.
I'd put them in C. I think C.
You think so? For the rock?
Yeah, I think so.
We don't see a lot of them.
Rock.
That's the only thing. Okay, so Jay, here's what I'm gonna do. You're gonna speed run this one, but not actually speed run it. But you're gonna tell me where you're gonna put all 3 of these. So take a moment to think of it, because I'm gonna go to the bathroom, and you could give your pitch about all of them, and I'll catch up with the conversation. But I'm gonna rank them all, and then you can talk about them all at the same time. So what are you thinking?
All right. You see, I think Greeks are really weak when it comes to mythic units compared to their heroic units. I'll put Colossus in A for now. You can be convinced of this. Medusa in B or C. If it was the previous game, it would be S tier. And Chimera probably in C or D as well. I'll put C or B. Sorry, C or B.
So one thing I'll call out about the Chimera really quick is the cost for gold is massive. Really rough.
And the favor too. Don't forget the favor too.
Wait, did they change? For some reason I'm thinking maybe they changed this. No, it's food now. That's right. So that's what I was going to say. The fact that it is food, I think it makes this unit a lot better. But think about that. I'm going to run to the bathroom. I'll be right back. You can give your pitch.
Pull back to the tier list, yeah. So we'll talk. Let's start with Colossus. I think that Colossus is not typically a great unit by any means, but the reason why it's an A tier for me is because efficiently you get a heavy front line as a Greek player that can sustain a long-term fight. I do not by any circumstance think you should be eating from gold mines to recover with its special ability, unless it's the enemy gold mine, then that's fine. Unless you can take it over for yourself. Beating trees, totally fine. Overall, very good, versatile front line. I don't necessarily... I do think Plenty is a good power that comes with it. I did rank it C in the God Power unit list, or God Power list.
So quick question there, Jay, on the recovery rates. Do you know, is there any difference in eating from a gold mine versus trees? Like the speed that you recover?
It's the same.
It's the same. Okay.
What it is it just gives you the same trickle. I think it's like 15 per second or a few seconds. Whether it's food, not food. Whether it's gold or wood.
Do you know, do Gaia's trees or Thor's gold mine make it heal faster since they have a faster harvest rate?
I don't know that, and I doubt that it does. I think it's pretty standard.
I would guess not, but that'd be a fun Easter egg.
No, but I do feel like eating the enemy's gold mine's pretty good because they can't stop you if you do it. Because if they send people, they either have to burst you down or they're just going to be wasting more of their own gold.
Yeah, I mean, like, again, I don't think you should ever be eating gold mines with them just because gold is so valuable in this game. And oftentimes there's been so many games that me and Matt have casted where gold is gone by 20 minutes in the game.
That's kind of what Jake's saying here, right? Is cripple the enemy's economy. Don't eat your old gold mine, but if you're in their back lines and can get one,
that's where I disagree. Take over that gold mine for yourself. Like, we saw a great game between Matreus and I forget the other player, Matt.
Samaro?
Do you remember by any chance? Yeah, Samaro, where literally a fight just happened and 2 fortresses fell, and as soon the fortresses didn't even fall, to be honest with you. They literally sent over villagers and took over the gold mine while the fortress was still up and was about to fall down. Like, I don't think it's valuable to use it on gold mines. I think you should take over the gold mine for yourself and deprive that from your and take that yourself. Now, wood,
Right.
totally fine.
Fair enough.
Honestly, this might even be a B tier Myth unit. The only reason I put it so highly is its defenses and its stats are very good. I think it's great to have in the front line to be able to interchange. But you know, it's not anything too crazy. It just the stats are good on this. That's why I put it there.
As an
I
Atlantean, I always steal the Colossus. I love with Trader. I love getting one of those on my side. Like I see it as the most valuable myth unit there.
To me, what's tough about the Colossus is I feel like we just don't have very many competitive 1v1 games with people opting for Plenty Vault, right? Mm-hmm. So we don't see a lot of Colossus. I think there's an interesting potential use here with Colossus. We see this a lot in AoE 4, right, Jay, where you can chop through a wall line. And I'm kind of curious if you could do something like that with the Colossus, both healing while exposing a part of the enemy's base, you know, kind of away from their line of sight, and then trying to get army inside of a wall line. So maybe an interesting way to use this, but I just don't see it enough. I feel like it's got to be B tier. It's really expensive. It's the wrong cost. Like, you don't want to be paying gold. Like that's not what you want. The Chimera, you know, the Chimera is way better just because of the food cost.
I mean, I'm not going to disagree, but I will say this:
difference too.
You need to check this, but if I'm not mistaken, you cannot eat while you're at full health.
No, you cannot when you're at full health. You cannot. Yep.
So it's very hard to be able to actually effectively do that because the trickle rate is pretty high. Let me just look it up real quick. So you get 15 hit points per second by consuming those trees, and per second.
That's pretty slow, man, for 1200 health.
Yeah, you do not heal up fast with these guys.
Yeah, it's not meant to be like eating during the middle of a fight, but if you survive the fight, then they're back to full HP pretty quickly.
I feel like Rock Giants just do a better job than Colossuses do.
Oh yeah, I think Rock Giants are a much better unit than Colossuses.
I agree.
Opinion. As well as Mountain Giants for that matter too. Honestly.
I mean, should we put this lower? I mean, are these units garbage?
I don't know.
I haven't seen a player use them. That's what's tough. Like the games we've watched and casted, Jay, like this wasn't pulled out even in WoW.
I wanted to put it in B tier, but I kind of don't. Maybe it is C tier actually. Yeah, you know what? No, D tier? No,
it's definitely not D tier. That's too harsh.
No, I'm actually changing my opinion as we talk.
You going from A to D?
It might be straight S, honestly.
You think F? I don't think it's that bad. I mean, the health pool is insane. It is an insane health pool, and the resistances are also good. It's slow, right?
So slow though, man. It's the
slow,
slowest unit tied with the Behemoth.
But when you're that tanky, like the 50% 75 is insanely good. You can upgrade them. Also, we'd have to see the exact numbers with the upgrades, right? Like this is just the base unit. But that's an incredible health pool. So I think the movement speed stops mattering so much when you can't just be bursted down. Like if you're gonna be able to walk up no matter what anyways, that's pretty effective. I don't think it's garbage.
Yeah, and they've got a lot of evac time too. Like if you get them out with just a little bit of health, keep in mind you can get it all the way back up and send it in with your next wave too. And unless the enemy's really committing to killing it, it's pretty easy to pull out of a fight.
Okay, in that C tier. C tier it is. C tier it is. Not D, it's C.
Also the further against D, I'll have to check and test this, but I believe Colossus have CC immunity. Like Shockwave won't affect them, other taunts, other things like that, they're immune to anything like that. I believe that's a change in Retold. I think I saw that somewhere, but I'd have to check for sure.
Now, Medusa, I haven't actually picked one time yet. I haven't been playing a lot of Zeus, to be honest with you. I haven't really played many besides like 2 games with Zeus. He's probably my least favorite Greek god.
And people were pissed about our rank for Lightning Storm, to be honest. Also, it was because the wiki was wrong. We looked at the wrong numbers. Because we looked at those numbers, we're like, what is wrong? Like, this isn't doing anything, and we hadn't seen enough games.
Yeah, Lightning Storm is great. I think Medusa back in the old game was freaking fantastic. I don't know where to rate Medusa fairly. I think B is fine. If it has the full 8-second stun with the turning to stone, it's pretty useful. I don't know if that's the case though. Right? I don't really think that's the case, but I'd have to test it in game. Honestly, it's the only myth unit that I have never built yet. because I just don't play Zeus.
Well, I do feel like I see players picking this up. I've seen it in a couple games. To me, it functions pretty much like the Mummy, right? You know, they're very similar units. The Mummy, you get a bit more frontline out of it because you get the minion. The Medusa, a bit more damage overall, I believe, that you're going to get from it. So I do see people mixing it in. And I also think, again, the wood cost is good. I think wood cost makes it better.
Yeah. And its defenses are good. Its armor actually is very comparable, if not better than. It's actually better than the Colossus. Maybe it is. The ratio is actually. Maybe it goes into A.
I think it's an A tier unit personally. If you don't have a strong opinion.
Yeah, I'm willing to put it in A. Chimera, no.
Yep.
I think Chimera.
Oh wait, we got an argument.
Sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh.
Argument.
Maybe not.
Jake, I think you're muted if you're trying to talk.
If you want to jump a little bit and compare the Mummy to the Medusa, I mean, I think
Let's do that.
I think Mummy's just better because they really nerfed the one shots in Retold. Like they didn't want any units getting one shot, but Mummy's having that AoE poison is just going to pump out way more damage than the Medusa is.
Yeah, so let's take a look at them directly.
They're
Comparison. I think it's a good comparison.
Cost, they're both wood costs, which is nice. You know, we're going to give them that perk.
So
Medusa has a little bit more health.
Yeah, Mummy's slightly more expensive. And when we look at the armor, it's pretty much similar. I mean, the Medusa is actually much tankier.
A lot less pierce.
The Medusa is much tankier. Rate of fire 1.7, number of projectiles 1. Same rate of fire, same number of projectiles. Okay. And then our Medusa's got 5 crush, 35 pierce damage, and then our Mummy's got 30 pierce, and that's it, just pierce damage. So actually less damage as well. I will say I do think the special effect for the Mummy is significantly better than Medusa. So I think that's really what you're going for with the Mummy.
The fact that you can AoE poison units, and I don't think I've seen a point where the Mummy's casted and it didn't kill at least one unit to get that minion. Like, I feel like the minions are pretty guaranteed for a fight.
I am surprised how much tankier the Medusa actually is, though.
The tank stats are incredibly
significantly
so
tankier.
Better.
Slightly better health pool, but then significantly better armor and the move speed and a little bit of health. So I feel like Medusa might have to go higher, to be honest, than the Mummy. Looking at that, even though the passive is better, I was going to put this in S tier, but I don't think I can anymore. Looking at that,
I don't see how you could put the Medusa higher than him though.
Because I mean, the overall stats.
You think you value that the special attack higher than all of the combat stats?
I mean the Mummy puts out a little less damage, but that minion's gonna, when you like factor that in, is gonna have a higher damage cost in total.
Yeah, and I guess like with the Mummy, you're not only getting the bonus damage from the minion, you're also getting that bonus frontline, which I feel like in particular for the Egyptian is really important because the basic composition is camel riders, chariot archers, myth units, priest, and that's really not like a big frontline. And I think those minions do help a lot and more effectively than the Medusa does.
Other thoughts, Jay, Mike?
I mean, I'm more inclined to value the base stats over that special. I do think special is a little bit better, but you're talking almost double the pierce damage or resistances, more health, more speed. Like when we've compared to the rest of the units, those things have been so comparable. And all the special is better. I agree with you on the Mummy, especially with the minions. But
so I will say, I think speed as a stat directly falls off the later in the age. Like early on, speed's really important for being able to harass, but once you're in the third age, I feel like your armies are gonna, like, the speed's not that big of a factor. You're meeting either way.
I agree for both of these units. They have enough speed that it's not a problem.
Yeah.
Like there's certain units in the late game that would be a big problem, but 4 is enough that it's a backline unit. It's relatively durable. It's not like a squishy archer unit. So I think that's fine. I think these two, that they effectively function the same. Whether we put one or the other isn't a big deal. You know, I think most situations I'd want the Mummy, but maybe I'd want the Medusa for others. They're pretty similar.
Yeah, so now we move on to Chimera. Chimera, when you look at the unit, yes, food over gold, which is a great change. Favors about 700 hit points, really fast unit, 5.3. Decent overall, pretty good armor stats, 60, 60, 80 split, very good. And its Blaze ability shoots 3 projectiles, dealing 20 divine damage with a 2x multiplier on myth units. If I'm not mistaken, it used to be a lot stronger back in the original game compared to what it is now. For some reason, I remember the original Chimera being absolutely broken compared to the current stat. I probably put this in B.
Like the stat profile is not quite as good, but and also I guess I probably shouldn't even be looking at the wiki, right? Seems like this is really our source of truth we need to go to. So I feel like the cost profile really helps it, particularly since it's in a Mythic Age myth unit. I feel like in the Heroic Age you have a surplus of wood that you can gather very safely. By the Mythic Age you typically have a farm network and you have a surplus of food that's safe and inside of your base, and to me that makes this myth unit just like a tier or two above what its stats give you, because the fact that you can actually afford to purchase them.
Yeah, so A tier is where I probably would put it. I was thinking B tier, but A tier seems fair with that adjustment. I will say, just like real quick, I think that Greek mythic units are substantially weaker than their heroic counterparts. Heroic Greek units just feel like a lot more valuable for the age than the mythic ones do to me.
Yeah, I think we've got that pretty much reflected here, right? We got Nemean Lion as the only S tier outside of the Minotaur, and we got our Manticore, which I think I'll agree will probably slot in above those. So yeah, it's really the Hydra I don't think is that great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my part.
So we're into the Egyptians here. Let's go ahead and actually we've done the Symph Bird recently. Let's get the last flying unit out of the way here. We've got the Pheonix. Jacob, I know you're going to have very strong opinions about this one.
So I think the greatest change they made for the Pheonix from the old AOM to the new retold is you don't have to pay to get a new Pheonix if it goes into the egg.
Okay.
So that was always a big. I mean, it's like, oh, there's an egg. Would you like to pay the full cost of a Pheonix to get another Pheonix? Now in retold, it's just like I think like a minute cooldown, maybe a minute 20, and then the Pheonix respawns. Which means if you have a large enough army and these guys go down, either the enemy, like they're still part of the army. Either there's a good chance that they're going to come back up. There is a little bit of nice rebirth to them. The only problem is just flying units really aren't that strong because, again, Atlanteans get those range heroes out really easily. They're going to mow them down. I feel like being above the skies and hovering is just not that strong anymore. So I'm going to have to put them with the Atlantean birds kind of low.
So I will say one more thing. Sorry, just one quick thing is the armor ratios are pretty low too. If you do get into the egg, units effective at 15 on the hack and 50 on the crush, they could probably get on that egg pretty quickly and just annihilate it.
So I'll say I've had games in which a tower is targeting the egg, and it basically takes that tower out of the fight for a while.
Jacob, I've got a question that I hope you know the answer to, but maybe not. We might not have tried this yet, but if you delete your Pheonix in your base, do you get the egg?
I think so.
So maybe we need to
Why
test
would you
that.
want to do that? Just for population
because
maxing?
if your Pheonix is low, right, that's a way to heal it to full health.
Okay.
Without taking Priest or Pharaoh time, you can just reset your Pheonix basically, and based on the cooldown, if you're just careful with it for a couple minutes, you got the egg back up anyways. It's kind of just a way to cheat that healing process, I think.
I feel like with Egyptian having so much heal potential with Priest and Pharaohs, you're probably not pulling that one out of the tricks.
Yeah.
Jake, I'm going to disagree with you a little bit on these being ranked similar to the other birds, because I think that crush damage is kind of huge. If you have a couple Phoenixes bunched together and you move them around properly, you can do some backline building damage with them. Like, they don't have to go head on into an army. Whereas, like, Stymphanian birds, it's pierce damage, so they're pretty much only useful against soldiers.
They can't be A. They can't be A. They gotta be B.
Okay, so I have a very different opinion on this. I'm gonna argue there's no better flying myth unit in the game, and that's why I think it has to be S tier. It's the best in the game, and there's no argument that other. Give me an argument that a different flying myth unit is better than the Pheonix.
So it is the best flying myth unit, but it's still weak to archer retaliation. Like,
Yeah, its ratio is 55%. With even Centaurs, I could possibly take care of that. With Age 2 myth units, I could take care of that bird.
But keep in mind what you're saying. The speed's not bad on this thing, and with the Egyptians, you have a lot of healing, and you basically have a guardian angel with your Pheonix where you can pull back, and as long as it gets close enough to your base where you can defend the egg, you can get it back for free. And its hack armor is bad, but the pierce armor isn't terrible. So unless you're playing against the Norse, you're not getting hit by a lot of hack armor. It doesn't really matter that much. I feel like this unit is really good. I feel like there's nothing that compares to it as far as flying combat myth units. Really, any flying
keep in
myth
mind,
units.
you're in Age 4 at this point. You have maximum range on your Toxotoad, your Arcus, on a number of ranged units. Even if they're not myth, and if they are myth, I mean not myth, heroes like Arcus, it's even worse. But like, you are at max range with your projectiles. You have maximum damage at this point in the game. You're in the Mythic Age. There are so many counters to flying units by this point in the game that I think that they're just weaker overall. And the Pheonix might be the best of the bunch, but that doesn't mean that it's good. Like S tier. There's no way it's S tier.
But I think if they're doing nothing but archers, as the Egyptians, you just go Camel Rider Siege. If they don't have an infantry mass to deal with your camels and siege frontline, you're going to destroy buildings, and you don't even have to pull in the Pheonix. It's not until you can take down that archer mass that you really even want to pull them in, and then they double as huge area of effect damage and siege weapons. Like, they do a ton of damage.
I just disagree. I completely and vehemently disagree. S tier. If you want to put
am I alone here? Am I the only one that thinks this?
I see your point, Matt. I still think flying units are kind of garbage just in general in this game. Now they're easily countered. I could argue an A here because I think that maneuverability for the buildings, and unless an army's actually focused on it, that Guardian Angel is pretty huge here. I think S might be a little extreme because there's a few other myth units I'd choose above it, but I don't know. Yeah, you've convinced me to move it up to A at least.
The gold cost is pretty hard again for Egyptians, like any Egyptian gold cost myth unit.
Okay, I'll settle for A then. It sounds like I'm in the minority here.
I am so shocked. So shocked.
I'll settle. I was thinking about just slamming it, but I'll settle.
You were trying to go S tier. That's crazy, my boy.
I think I
have a good point, right? I see your arguments. Guardian Angel's huge, yeah.
And it's just like within its class of myth unit, it's just like obviously the best one. You know, it's like that's why I feel like.
I want to B tier.
Yeah, it is.
I'd rather B tier, not A.
Okay, so the next one we've got Beyblade coming up. What are we thinking, Jake?
Yeah, the Blenders, Avengers, Assemble. These guys. I mean, they're kind of just like worse Sphinx in my mind.
I completely agree. I completely agree with that.
What do you think? C tier?
I don't think they're quite that bad. I think I put them in B tier, but I agree with you. They have to be below the Sphinx. But Sphinx is S tier, and it does function kind of similarly, where it does more damage than the Sphinx for sure. But you lose some movement speed. You're a little bit more durable. But I'll have to check. What do these guys cost? Do you think I go to the Avenger or Avengers?
And the other thing too.
Oh, here we go. Oh, their food. That's really good actually for these guys. I think that keeps it up a little bit higher for me.
They are age, or not age 4, but they are age 4. But
yeah, they're age 4.
They have a 3x.
They're not that slow. Like they can move around with the army without slowing them down.
Keep in mind, they got a 3x against, so I mean they are very effective.
What's their 3x?
Against myth units, they could do a 3x. That's their bonus damage.
I do feel like, well, actually, maybe that's good, because I feel like how they actually play out is you do this big AoE damage to the front line to start the fight, and then you do pretty good damage to one unit for a while. So maybe that's the best way to use them, is to do that AoE and then focus down the enemy myth unit with them. That's kind of a cool multiplier that he has there.
Yeah, it's a myth unit killer, a good myth buster for that matter.
I still just don't think it's as good as these other Mythic Age units, though. Like, it can't be in the same tier as some of these others for me.
Yeah, I mean, the Chimera's fire is going to do a lot more than the Avengers spin.
That shit melts people in the remake. It's so strong. Okay, so we're on to the Norse ones. So we've only got the 2 original, and then we got Fanfure as well for the Norse gods. So we've got Fenris Wolfblood, I'm gonna put this guy in the F tier. I think he's the first F tier myth unit because I have tried using these in the late game, and Fimbulwinter is amazing, but at the end of the day, you just don't want to spend your favor on these things. They're just, it's not where you want to get it. You could either save up and get more cast of your god powers that are so good, or you just spend a bunch of favor and your food on these, and the amount of food that you use in the Norse is really high. So I just feel like they're not good. You have to get a huge mass of them. I don't know. I feel like they're pretty bad and no one uses them.
That's a good point. I've never seen them actually get to their full. I think it's 6 where it stops getting the buff of having them grouped together. I think it is 6. That's what the wiki says. Yep. I've never seen anybody even build 3.
Yeah,
fair,
exactly.
So
it's such an investment in the end of the game, and I feel like the Norse, the Mythic Age is about the second you hit Mythic Age, you are either winning the game or you are losing the game. Doesn't matter which primary god you're going with. Whether you're getting Fimbulwinter, you're going all in with Ragnarok, you're pulling out a Nidhogg, like you're either winning that game right there or the game's over, and you're just not like massing a myth unit at that point. You know, it just doesn't really happen. So I'm putting an F tier. I don't know. Any pushback?
No pushback from me. I mean, I've never even seen anyone get more than the one free one from the temple.
Yeah,
I've tried to, is the thing. Is like I've tried playing with it and it just feels so unimpactful, especially when you compare it to like the Fire Giant. These guys are expensive and I feel like you can't get a lot of them, but they do so much damage with their special attack. They just delete an entire infantry or backline with their special attack. It's crazy.
Love that unit.
Yeah, and like they're expensive, but the fact that you even get one when you age up, like this unit is insanely good if you use it correctly.
I will say with the Fire Giants, their charge up to use the special, I think it's the longest of any myth unit besides like the Cyclops throw. It takes a while for them to actually shoot out that first blast.
Okay, we'll leave it there. I also just saw in the chat that someone's arguing for Anubis to be higher than B tier. I don't know, man. I'm looking at these other units.
I took that the other way as an argument for being lower.
Oh, really? I guess we'll have to clarify.
Yeah, we might have to redebate a few of these early ones.
Okay, well, yeah, we'll see, because I do want to actually slot more into DNF. I feel like we need to be more aggressive with it. So this one is probably, for me, the hardest unit in the entire tier list to actually rank, because my god, does it do a lot of damage when you use it. This thing, like, it's one attack, it's an entire fire breath across an entire army, does more than half of their health with one attack. So it's really effective, but the fact that you give back 300 gold when it goes down, that's like a huge debuff. That in the Mythic Age, getting just bonus 300 gold immediately for your opponent is so effective that I feel like I can't rate this highly. I feel like it's got to be D tier. Have you guys seen enough of this to know? Because it's like crazy strong, but like the favor cost is high and the gold cost is really high, and then you give that back to the opponent, and that can be a pretty big swing in a lot of matchups. Like, I just feel like you don't want to be building these.
Yeah, that's interesting. I feel like I just haven't seen this in enough games to give it an accurate rating, so I'll defer to you on this one.
Matt, let me ask you this. We've talked about this for 2 other units, but committing seppuku, and can you kill it yourself before the enemy takes it down to prevent that 300 gold?
It's worth testing, and especially worth testing in team games, actually, because I wonder if it splits the gold or if it awards 300 gold to every enemy. That's something we're going to have to test.
I'll also point out, doesn't its stats also give it so much more credence? It has a 65, 70, and 80%.
It's tanky as hell, dude. It does a ton of damage,
so
too.
Freaking tanky, dude. Like, and the damage is amazing.
I mean,
plus the hit points.
The
1,300
unit is really strong. It's just you got to keep in mind you're gifting a unit of equal resource value to the opponent on a slight delay.
Yeah, look at the number of projectiles on top of that.
Oh, I know. It does crazy
projectiles.
damage. But I feel like to me, it's kind of similar to the Cyclops, where the one you get is really good for a timing attack, but you're not going to be building these. You're not going to be getting more of them.
Okay. I mean, I defer to you because I don't play Norse, but I just thought that unit was insanely strong. Granted, the drawback of giving that gold back is insane. But
It does say grants gold to the Slayer. So I think if you could kill it and get the 300 gold back yourself, that would be an amazing cheat.
Well, surely you don't get the gold, but even denying the gold, that would actually be like really strong. I honestly feel like they would patch that out though, especially if you could do it while in combat, because I feel like that is gimmicky. But maybe out of combat, if you haven't been in combat for a certain amount of time, you do deny the gold. It'd be kind of an interesting mechanic. All right, so they renamed these guys the Centarius now, is that right? Centimanus.
Centimanus now. Yeah, I still call him Hecate Giants.
I know, I want to call him Hecate Giantess, but Mike, you want to talk through them? What do you think about these guys?
Yeah, so maybe unpopular opinion here. I don't know what you guys think about it, but I'm really not a fan of any of the late game Atlantean myth units. I just feel like they don't have a ton of value versus just cranking out other types of soldiers. Of these three, I'd probably take Hecate Giants of them. The thing is, they're kind of slow. They're really strong with their hack attack. They got 55 on the base, and you have an upgrade that can bump that up another 50%. So they hit pretty hard. The thing is, they're really slow to get to the enemy, but if you stack a couple of them up, keep in mind the god power you're getting with them is Vortex, where you can drop every single military unit you have in the game in one place. So one thing I really like with these guys is if you couple them with a couple Behemoths, again, they're just compounding on each other's power of that quick mobility, of just dropping them inside of the enemy's base, right? They're not very good as a front line that's charging at the enemy, but if you can get up on them and then smash them away, their ground pound is pretty powerful. So I would probably say they're my favorite of the Atlantean 3. So for that reason, I'd probably put Hecate Giants at a B, but I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say.
Well, one just
Centimanus, excuse me.
Yeah, Hecate Giants. Yeah, we're gonna stick with that. Their stats are actually incredibly good. This amount of tankiness is super strong, and I'm curious. This special attack, this is what it is in the current version, right? This is the shockwave type effect that they have, 20-second recharge. Yeah, so that's a really strong special attack to have on these. I agree with you. I think these warrant a B tier. We don't see them often because honestly, not a lot of games go to Mythic Age right now.
Yeah, the thing is, again, they're just really slow. I think they've got a 3 and something as their movement. Yeah, 3.3 as their movement. So they're really tough to get on the enemy. If you got a couple archers or priests, you can knock them out pretty easily. But once they're in there, they can do some serious damage.
You are right, though. Go ahead, Jay.
My point's going to defer the conversation, so
Okay.
you first.
I was going to say, I agree with you, Michael, when you say they kind of combine well with the Behemoths, because if you can get both of them in the enemy base, one takes down the town center, the other just stops any of that, Pierce armor from hitting them.
Yeah, you put the enemy in a really tough decision of making the shot call of do they want to lose all their buildings or do they want to lose their army? Because the Hecate Giants will ground pound the units and Behemoths will tank an entire village. Yeah, it's a pretty good combo.
My point is I actually don't think it's the best myth unit for Atlanteans. I think Hades is actually better, but that's just my opinion.
Who is? Jay, you cut out right as you said it?
Yeah, I said Limpides, I think is actually a little bit better than those.
I agree.
I think that I've seen such good uses of this myth unit from pro players. The chaos and randomness of its different special effects is also very good.
Yeah, so let's talk about those before Argus's, because I am a big fan of those too, and actually I love one of the favorite upgrades in the game is theirs for chickens. So rather than invoking chaos, you just turn human soldiers into chickens, and that's a really fun one to see if you get a bunch of them stacked up on each other, because you could just obliterate an entire front line with them. So I see your point there. They do have some value. They also do kind of a similar thing to the Scarabs, where they have a splash damage when they explode, which I don't really get, because as a ranged unit, they don't get a whole lot of utility about that. I guess just if you are being charged from the front line, it's a good counter, but I haven't really seen that make much of a difference inside of a fight.
Yeah, I was trying to look for it, but I believe the Lampides got buffed, not on this patch that went live today, but the patch before, I believe they got a bit of the buff. But again, we just don't see a lot of Mythic Age Atlanteans, right?
Yeah, I just feel like most of these Mythic Age units, it's not worth diverting all the resources towards it. I'd rather get a couple supporting ones from Heroic Age and mostly just put your stuff into different military units, because a lot of Atlantean stuff is counters too, right? You have your counter infantry, or you have counter for everything. You have your counter barracks and your regular one. So It's a lot of just shifting depending on what the enemy's doing, and I feel like almost across the board, myth units are not the move that you go with because it's just too easy to counter them with a couple heroes in your suite.
And I feel like the Atlanteans have such good use of favor though elsewhere.
They what? Sorry, Matt.
The Atlanteans just have such good use of favor elsewhere. Like the recastability of all of their god powers are so good.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, like,
and you don't want to handicap yourself from not being able to do that. And if you crank any of these, I mean, all of their last unit ones are kind of high cost. They're 25 favor. So if you want to get a few stacked up, you're not reusing your god powers at all.
That being said, I still do think that they are better than Rarities, or however you want to call it.
The Sentimanus. Yeah. No, that's fair. I'm kind of torn between the two because it's different utility for him, range versus the front line. I could see the value on both of those. I think we can probably agree Argus are the worst of the three.
Yeah, that I agree with.
I actually disagree. I think Argus is the best.
Really?
Ooh, did not see that coming.
Yeah, I think Argus is the best. So let's take a look at Lampades. So basically what we're getting here, right? So I'm going to compare the Lampades to the Argus because I think they're more similar in how they function in a fight. You know, it's a mid-range myth unit that's going to be doing some sort of AoE damage or CC to the opponent, basically, is how they function in a fight. So for the Lampades, you've got this 350 health pool and really low armor percentages for hack and pierce armor. Decent divine damage, decent pierce damage, 1 projectile. But if we look at the Argus, this unit not only does what I believe is going to look like more damage, and I just want to see the rate of fire, 2.0. The Argus is a little bit less, but more damage. It's not the divine damage, which hurts, but look at the actual health pool and the defensive pool. I mean, the armor percentages are way higher. The health pool is more than double. Similar speed. And I think this unit is just like doing more instead of a fight than the Lampades actually are.
So I think
one thing about Lampades,
the range is a big difference. Yeah, go ahead, Jay.
No, you're fine. I was just saying the one big thing too is keep in mind when your Lampades go down at 75 through divine damage is doubled against myth. It's only halved against heroes, which most effects against heroes are going to be ordered down. So if you manage to kill them, which you probably will, they do a massive impact on death too, more than any of the other units we've talked about that has that effect. And I actually compare them Lampades to like a couple of the other, if you can go back to the tier list real quick, like Medusa and Mummy. I put it in that category, like not maybe ranking wise, but that category of myth unit. And I would rather have Lampades, in my opinion, possibly.
Interesting.
Like out of those three.
You would have
so the
Lampades
Argus
over these?
I mean, I don't know if it's as good, but out of those three with its special abilities, like we value the Mummy special ability so much. I think the Lampades special ability is better than the Mummy's. Its stats are not.
I think it's the worst of the three.
Hard disagree.
I think it's definitely the worst of the three.
Worst? I don't know, man. I think that AoE CC is very nice.
The mummy's tanky than the others, though. Like it just dies so much quicker. Tanky. So much more less tanky.
Think about that attack on 75 divine damage and multiplied against me.
But
the thing is that divine
range,
damage,
you know.
Yeah, that divine damage is only in the right scenario if you're getting charged too. You get killed by archers and nothing's happening. Whereas like the Scarab divine blow up, you're already on the enemy's front line, right? Or you're taking their buildings. These guys, if you're a distance away and using them as you should use archers, it's kind of sporadic, right? It's got to be the right scenario to use it.
That's not a bad place. Maybe B's right. I think. I do think it's better than the first one we talked about. I'm not even going to try to pronounce it again.
Argus. We'll put Argus there. I could be wrong. I feel like I see people using it, and just the fact that it's such a beefy front line and its attack range feels higher than melee because of how big the unit is. I don't really know exactly how that works as far as like attacking from the center of your unit or from the edges. It's kind of interesting thing. If anyone knows, actually, that'd be interesting to learn about. But it feels like it's auto attacking pretty easily. I've got too much league term, guys. I gotta get away from it, but I guess we'll see. I guess we'll see with the Argus. We'll see in the tournament if anyone pulls it out. And that's our list. And now we have the non-minor god myth units. And what I mean by that is they're linked to a god power or some other mechanism of getting these myth units. They're not part of your age up. So Dryad, kind of part of the age up. I think the one thing to call about Dryad is that you do get 4 of them for free if you age up with Hesperetta's tree. And they're also pretty tanky and decent stats units, but they cost wood, which makes them so much better, especially for the Atlanteans and Gaia in particular, that I think these units are actually really good.
Yeah, there's a couple things I'm going to say here. One is it's a big plus that there's no favor involved in this, right? It's pure wood. They're really cheap. You can keep cranking them out and sending them in. You do have the cap on how many you can have at a time. One thing I really don't like about Dryads is that if you lose your ground with where you've placed your tree, the enemy can steal it, and you can use this. It can be used right against you, right? So I think that's something to account for with these.
But that's more for the god power, right, than the myth unit, because if the enemy has it and it's strong for them, I think that still makes the myth unit stronger.
Okay, yeah, fair enough.
This one thing too is like the hit points is pretty low though. I mean, its stats are good on the defensive side for the ratios, but the hit points is really low.
Yeah, I think they're a churn and burn. Like you just keep sending them in, and I don't know. I wouldn't rank them very highly, honestly. They don't do a ton for you. They're just an extra body to throw into the fight, in my opinion.
And the other nice thing is no favor cost, right? It's just wood, so you can actually build them pretty easily. I think I want to put them B tier.
I'd put C, honestly.
Yeah, I'd probably go C myself.
What do you think, Jake?
Jake, any thoughts on these?
I mean, they are very good for just burning and turning and just pumping them out nonstop. I think I'd keep them B.
Okay.
And just one question before we move: is it you get them in age 3, age 4? I forget.
3.
2, or sorry, 3.
3.
Okay.
Yeah, it's true. Thea.
Just wanted to realize. Oh, and one more thing: can we move the Chimera above Medusa? The A tier. I do think Chimera's probably better.
Sure. Okay, next one, kind of a weird one with the Fimbulwinter Wolf. I mean, these things absolutely clap. Unless there's a hero nearby, these things beat everything. I think they're A tier units.
They get, like, if you click the bell and everything goes in, they get dangerously close to actually destroying the town center, which is crazy.
Yeah, their building damage is nuts. I think these deserve an A for sure. Especially the quantity of them you get.
Are they S tier, Matt?
You can't control them, which is rough. You know, like you can't decide what they actually do. So I think that has an impact on them. They're kind of like a Tartarian gate spawn in that way, but the damage is consequential. But the thing is, if you do have a hero unit near them, the hero unit does shred through these things.
Yeah,
I think one big thing too is they're not linked to just enemy town centers anymore. They can kind of spawn anywhere on the map in which the enemy has villagers.
They're definitely town center oriented, because if you have villagers on a gold mine, they don't spawn that.
Are you sure? Because I've definitely had like little farming pockets outside, and that I feel like they've gotten hit by.
I could be wrong, but I don't think so. I could be wrong though.
Well, I think we just leave it there for now. We'll see.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about the new Nidhogg?
I like that they gave him pizzazz, but he's just not very strong.
I actually okay, when we did this god power thing, I think that you guys undersold it big time. And I was watching John Arbiter's stream, and he was playing with Nidhogg, and like, oh my god, this thing was insane, because like it wasn't because of the unit itself, it was because of the way he used it. This unit almost never took the engage or the fight initially. It was always hovering in the backline, ready to go in and clean up buildings and clean up backline once heroes were out of the way, or once he took an advantage. And once he did that, this unit would clean up buildings like nothing else, would clean up backline like nothing else. It was, if you know what you're doing with this unit, it's so fantastic. So good.
You think?
But you don't agree for Pheonixes for that?
No, I mean, like, I'm just talking like the unit itself. Like, here, can we pull up the stats on it? Actually, that's a very good point.
Yeah, sure.
Let's see what the damage is and the stats are on this, because that's also a very good point. That's why I don't like Pheonix. Okay, 2,500 hit points. Its defenses aren't bad, 50, 50, 80. 40 hack damage, 40 crush damage, 8 X multiplier on area damage. Rate of fire is 2, which is fantastic. I mean, that's so much better than Pheonix.
Well, yeah, but you get one of them, right? So it's kind of, it looks like it's about equivalent to 5 Pheonixes.
Yeah, but keep in mind, once you're in the Wonder Age, if you ever got to the Wonder Age, The stats are just absolute.
Yeah, we have seen that on some free-for-alls as well. I mean, I feel like the biggest thing with the Nidhogg is if you don't pay attention to the special ability, it does nothing. So you have to do that, but otherwise I think it's a B tier unit.
I mean, yeah, I'm not gonna say it's higher than B or lower than B, but I've seen it used very good at high level of game. 1400 elo plus, this unit has done a number.
Yeah, I hope we get to see a bit of it in the tournament, so we'll have to find out. So next up we've got the minion, either from ancestors or from mummy spawns. I feel like it's a C tier unit. They're not really anything crazy special. It's nice to have them, but like pound for pound, they're not better than anything here.
Do they go into D tier? I mean, if they had like Eclipse on with it, yes, they're insane. But like, if you're just talking about getting them from a mummy and not using the god power to get them, I think they're actually
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
weak.
I think we bump them down.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
I mean, they do their job. They're not very strong, but they do get that little extra front line for you if you got the mummy back line going. Yeah, I guess D tier's fine. They do their job, but they're not very strong.
Okay, sounds good. And I need to step out for 1 second. So, who wants to volunteer?
Serpent's D tier. Serpent's D tier.
Jay
Or
and
F.
Shades.
F tier.
Shades.
Shades, because they cost you nothing. B
And what about Walking Woods?
tier. Very good siege unit. Maybe even A actually. We'll see. But
Okay, I'll be right back. Go ahead and talk about them.
So
let's
Shades,
talk,
first
boys.
off, Shades do cost you something. They cost a poor soul who sacrificed themselves in the battle.
yeah, so thank God that soul died, so my shade could come. I'm joking. Shade's B tier might be too high. Maybe it's a C tier. I actually have to look at the stats, and I'm gonna have Matt pull them up. Once we get to that.
I think a minion might beat a Shade in a 1-on-1 if we want to try that out.
I'm pulling up the Copa menu because I do want to see where the shade actually lies with its stats. I know it's not on the screen, but I will read them. Let's see. So shades have 90 hit points, extremely low actually. Wow. Its crush armor is 99, hack 20, pierce 20. Holy shoot, they're actually really crap.
Yeah, see,
I didn't realize
minions
they were
have
that weak.
100 minions have 140 health. So
Yeah, Shade's got to go to D. I lied. So when Matt gets back, we'll change Shades to D. Even though they cost nothing, they're just so incredibly weak.
I would love to see a March Madness bracket of some of these different myth units fighting. You know, you give it like a couple for the weaker ones versus one Mythic Age, but that would be fun to see.
I will say Shades Age 2 are actually pretty useful because like early trades, when you do get those as Hades in the early fights, they're nice to have to be just to tip the scales in your favor.
For
They
sure.
are a D tier unit. I don't think anyone should ever argue Serpents as anything. Serpents F.
So I do like Shades because you're going Hades, so you're going to be Archer maxing anyway. So it is nice to get a little bit of frontline balance with your army there. Serpents, yeah, I mean they're so weak. They're only good when you can use them on villagers and just plop them down. All like any other unit's gonna clean them up with ease.
Did you know Serpents have less health than villagers?
I did know that.
There you go.
I mean, if you're playing against Atlantean, they get hero villagers, so they kind of suck there. But if you're playing against, any of the other three, or I guess, I'm talking myself out of them because Norse, you could just kind of upgrade one of them to an offensive unit and kind of clean them up.
We actually saw this in a casted game where Serpents was cast on villagers. If you have no additional units and it's just the Serpents, your villagers can effectively deal with the Serpents by themselves, especially if they're Greek and they have the upgrade with the damage early on.
Okay,
weak.
we did watch a game where someone did the Atlantean carnivorous plants on villagers, and that did nothing. Like Serpents are infinitely better than that thing. I think we can agree.
But there's a huge difference. The Carnivoria has much, much better multipliers against buildings. And the idea behind the Carnivoria is you pair it with a shockwave, in which it can just eat a unit altogether. A Carnivoria doesn't do much damage to villagers either, because I think it has a negative multiplier against them. But like when you put a Carnivoria down in a fight against units, it can eat the whole unit. Do a lot more utility than Serpents can do. So I mean, it's two different things completely, but Serpents are just ass.
That's fair. I don't really see you using serpents in an actual fight. You're just using it to try to villager snipe. Which I will say, I've been playing set a little more, and that vision upgrade, just so you can use vision on cooldown, is pretty nice because you just identify a villager hub and then drop the serpents. It's kind of a nice combo.
Yeah, I'd definitely be rating that one above Spy if we redid that video. So someone catch me up. Where do we land on these?
So we put Shades down to D because they are weaker than a minion if they were to fight.
Okay.
We haven't talked about Walking Woods at all yet, which I do like the A tier selection because these things are powerful.
Especially when you think like they're kind of a heroic age type unit, you know, like they are quite strong for that.
Keep in mind their hack armor is actually very low. It's only 30%, so there is a way to go around Walking Woods, but I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world, but the hack is very low.
Yeah, I have noticed that. I feel like in Norse mirrors, it's not as good because there's a lot of hack damage and they just kind of die pretty quickly. But if you're versus like a Hades player or, you know, an Egyptian player who's going fast heroic, I feel like these can be quite powerful.
I think B tier, honestly.
You think B tier?
They're still good.
Well,
yeah, B tier, but they're still.
What is it most similar to here? In like the similar tier? Maybe Prometheans, honestly.
I'd rather have Prometheans than Walking Woods.
Yeah, we don't really have any heroic age units that function similar to Walking Woods. I mean, in the other tier, I kind of think like automatons kind of function similarly. I guess the Hecate, but there's not really many heroic age units here. I mean, Frost Giant. Would I rather have 7 Frost Giants? Yeah, I think I would rather have 7 of those than Walking Woods.
Well, yeah, you're never gonna have just one Walking Woods by itself. They're kind of just that package deal. If you get a bunch of them, I feel like comparing them to the tree wood nymphs might be the best comparison. Like, you get 4 of those, or you get the was it like 9 Walking Woods coming in?
Yeah, what's the stats comparison there actually? So we've got 240 health, pretty good resistances, but a significant weakness to hack armor, right? And then compared to the Dryad, gotta go all the way back up.
I think Dryad needs to be dropped to C, actually, Matt. The more and more I look at it.
So the speed is 3.5, the damage is crush and hack. Dryad's only hack and it's less damage. Little bit faster, little bit less tanky. I think one Walking Woods is definitely better than one Dryad.
Yeah, but I think Dryads, because you can only get 4 of them. I know they don't cost any favor, but I don't think it's a B tier unit. I think you got to drop it to C.
Yeah,
I agree. Let's drop it back down to C.
Question on the Walking Woods. Can you use Forest Fire to kill them? Or once they become sentient, are they immune to that?
I think they're immune. That'd be a good thing to test, though.
We tried it. You can't use Forest Fire on them.
Well, I don't think they're immune. It's like any unit, right? If you're next to the Forest Fire, you get hurt. But I don't think it does anything special.
Okay.
The fact that you put it above a Colossus is crazy, though. But, I mean, I'll let that be.
I think Colossus is getting slept on in this list. I think it should be B tier.
I mean, should Walking Wood be much lower? Maybe it should.
I think it's C tier too.
I mean,
when I compare it directly to like what you can purchase in that age, it does feel like it's a much weaker unit.
Okay, let's go ahead and do some team game / reordering now. I think we're damn near 3 hours actually on this.
Oh my god, we've been going for so long. Yeah, let's clean it up. Let's clean it up. All right, so I think we need some candidates for F. We have too much up in C and B that we need to shift to F and D. What do you guys think?
Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, it's kind of a nice curve.
I'm happy with S tier. I don't think anything in A tier needs to go up to S tier, unless maybe not Man Giant. Those are the only 2 I would consider, but happy with that. Maybe Limpades goes down to C.
I think I'm okay with it, honestly. Let's leave it here. Let's just do like a minute or 2 per to talk about the best or the worst in their given tier. Because right now we've got them organized by age. So I'm gonna get a
Yeah.
screenshot of that.
We do have a question in the chat too from Training Arc about what we think the best myth unit in each class is. You know, like Norse, Greek, each religion. So that'd be interesting to hear what everyone has to say.
I kind of think we have it. I think Valkyrie's the best for the Norse. Rock Giant's close second. I think the Greek. Oh, what do you think, Jay? Nemean Lion or Minotaur is better?
I think Nemean Lion is better, but Minotaur is better because of age 2 versus age 3. When you're talking about just like value versus age 2, age 3, but I think the Nemean Lion as a unit. When we do like the tier within each other, like without the age being a problem, I think you knock Nemean Lion above Minotaur. But yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna put it up there then. And then I feel like the Sphinx is honestly the answer for Egyptians. I feel like the Egyptians don't have any like really true S tier myth units outside of the Sphinx. I actually think are quite good. The fact that they're a classical age myth unit and you can upgrade them and punch above your weight with heroic age and mythic age myth units, it makes them really strong.
All right, let's reorder A tier. I think we just did. Oh, actually, no. Do you move the Rock Giant above any of those?
No, I think it's all right there.
All right, A tier then.
Best in A tier, I'm gonna argue for the Chimera to be quite high.
Wow, I was not expecting that, but all right.
I think Pheonix should move up there on that list too.
I agree.
Oh no!
Wow.
Okay.
I don't think it's S tier, but it does have some pretty high utility.
Mountain Giant should be near the top. Sure.
Yeah, I agree with that as well.
And I think I put Manticore right behind the Mountain Giant.
I think Manticores are not as strong as we're kind of leading them on to be. Like, I think they're the strongest range unit for their age, but I mean, like, the Laser Gators, I think the Laser Gators kind of compete with them a little harder than, like, the gap we have between those two is a little too wide, I think.
Can we do a damage comparison on those two?
The Laser Gators and the Manticores?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they do function a bit differently, but let's take a look because the Manticore's lower range.
It's wood versus gold, right, for the price?
Yeah, I mean that's the big difference. Is it's just gold cost for a
The number of projectiles is huge as well, and
So it's
like the area of effect.
This is really easy though. It's 33 pierce damage per second, right, with the rate of fire plus the bonus effect. And then if we look at the Pitsushos,
stronger rate of fire.
wow,
It's 10 pierce damage.
I think that means
20.
it takes 2 seconds to cast. I'm pretty sure that's what rate of fire is calculated with, like.
It's definitely slower than the Manticore.
Yeah.
The attack.
Oh, so 2 is like 2 seconds to fire rather than 1 second to fire.
Not 2 per second.
The thing that it doesn't show here though are its multipliers, which is unfortunate, but they're quite good.
I still prefer the Manticore. Like I like Gators, but they're not in the same class as Manticore at all.
Yeah, I agree. I think Manticore's better. I was gonna say
Fire Giant.
I was gonna say the Caladria should be next. I think Caladria is really good.
What about Fire Giant behind Pegasus?
Yeah, I agree. These are really good. You just don't see a lot of them, but they're super strong.
I think I'm happy with that tier the way it is right now.
I'm gonna put Behemoth at the bottom of it.
Really? I was going to recommend bumping that one up a little. I think it's just, you don't get Siege like that very often. Like, Scarab's the only one that comes close to it for that early in the game for Siege attack.
I would put it right behind Battle Boar. Yeah.
I think I'd rather have a Battle Boar too. I think.
That effect that Battle Boar has is absolutely game changing. Right? If you can macro that properly.
I feel like the flexibility of the unit, is like the big boost to it.
I would drop Promethean behind Medusa.
So based on this list, you're saying Caladria, you'd rank that as the highest Atlantean unit? Like, you think that provides the most value out of anything?
I think I would. The thing is, like, relative to its age, I think it's the best. I think it's the highest value Atlantean unit.
I've seen pros do things with that are absolutely crazy.
What am I missing that could, like, be better? Like, what are we underrating from the Atlanteans? I feel like they don't really have any incredible myth units. They just can get more of them.
Their myth units are cool, but they're not very present. Like
You
the
play
other
Atlanteans
really
for
just
heroes.
outshine them for sure.
You play Atlanteans for heroes, not Myth, is the way I see
Right.
it.
Yeah, you're 100% correct there.
And I feel like even
alright,
when you
B tier
play
then.
for myth units, you play it for a lot of them, not like for really strong ones.
B tier.
I feel like we should
Frost Giant needs to move up.
bump Anubis down a bit on that beard
Yeah,
list.
I put Anubis down. I think Scarab's a little higher though. They're
think
just such a low favor cost. Like they're cheap. You can get a lot of them out.
And I do feel like
I think
Scarab
5.
over Hydra.
No, over a 5-tier Hydra.
Well, I mean,
5-head Hydra.
that's a theoretical 5-headed Hydra.
Yeah, but you were talking about how easy it is with bronze, as well as being able to take out houses and minions and things like that. I mean, if you're talking 5-tier peak potential, I think you take a Hydra over a Scarab.
Oh, let's look. Let's see. I know we want to finish here soon. Oh my god, they have no hack armor. Holy shit.
Holy shit! I didn't realize it was that bad.
They have none. That's crazy.
Jesus.
Wow, I might be Team Hydra. Let's see what those look like.
Here, let me look up Hydra's.
Way
special
better
component.
defenses. Okay, I think I take Hydra actually. After looking at that.
And one more thing about the Hydra, real quick. Each Hydra head gives you 10 more attack per head, and 5 more crush damage per head. Like,
That's
you are
solid.
multiplying up to 50x and 25x, or additional, I shouldn't say x. So I mean, it's just substantially better.
Okay.
I think you push down Automaton too, a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Oh, guys, I realized we're missing a myth unit from the old one. Where's the purple flying hippo?
Ooh, we should have gotten that in here.
Oh yeah, you messed up.
I feel like
Alright,
we're
C
pretty
tier.
close here. Within this C tier,
Colossus needs to be above the Rock.
I think the Colossus is the best of
Maybe.
the C tier.
I think Cyclops is probably better for Age 2 versus Age 4.
And I'd like
Yeah.
Stimpford and Ravens to be high in C tier. They are pretty nice utility myth units, regardless, you know.
Yeah. Do you want to rank Satyr above Stimpford's, or you want to keep them below there? Because I'd say above.
I'd say Satyr's above
Oh.
what Jets for sure.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah,
I feel
I
like
don't-
Stimpfords are better than Satyr. I mean, they're
Just
expensive,
for the
but
water utility. Yeah.
and for just like even tree lines, just any sort of barrier, you have no, your path doesn't get blocked. It's much easier to move them. With a lot of these units, you can dodge every single ranged attack in the classical age. It's not until you get to the heroic age and you get that tech that gives you 99% accuracy that like some of these flying units are just like insanely good.
I'm happy with that.
And I think Dryads, I mean, it's slightly better than Walking Woods, it seemed like, but not much.
I thought the Woods were better, man. Look
Oh, no, yeah, you're right. The Woods were better. I kind of feel like, honestly, looking at this, I feel like the Draugr shouldn't be in D tier.
It should be C.
I feel like it should be C. I feel like it's not that bad.
Can we trade the Draugr and the Dryad? That's what I think we should do.
Yeah, because I feel like I'd rather have this than any, like for the equivalent resource cost, I'd rather have this than any of these units.
Yeah.
Definitely put the dragon as the top of D there. I mean, it still
Yeah,
has some good damage.
Yeah.
Dryad, I really wanted that in C, but that's fine. Dryad should be above the minion shade though too.
Is Serpentar only F? Like, should Fenris Wolfbrood actually be D?
No, I think F is fair there. I mean, like, it's definitely stronger than some other units here, but the cost and use of it, it's just no one uses it.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we've got it then. Any final notes?
No, I think
It's a
this
pretty
was a
good
good
looking
video.
list.
Hit 3 hours recording almost on this one
Yeah,
too.
that's crazy. I thought we would do this one quicker, but I guess, you know, honestly, having 4 people makes a big difference. Like, there's more to talk about. And some of these were kind of interesting.
Yeah, I think there were some really good debates here.
Yeah. Okay, so let's do like 3 minutes on team game differences. I think siege units get better, right? Do we kind of agree with that?
Agreed. They should all be bumped up a tier.
100%.
Like Scarab, I think automatons probably get better. Hydra get
Hydra gets
better. You
better.
can stack up
I
way
mean,
easier.
the big one is Rock is going to go to instant A tier.
Yeah,
Not A, but like
I think
No, actually,
Rock
yeah,
could
you're
go to
right,
B.
you're right.
I think it goes to B still. I don't think it's amazing, but it's pretty good. I think fast
Honestly,
units
put
are better.
Behemoth in S. Behemoth goes to S.
You think so? Is it that strong?
Yeah, they're that strong when you actually have them in
Yeah,
combined with a
they
bunch
just
of
need the support. If they've got people around them, they can do some serious stuff.
Yeah, they're good.
When
Okay.
it's a team game, me and Mike were able to take just 2 of his units and my entire army and wipe out half the map because those 2 units were alive for me to be able to protect and siege. Clodria goes to S2 in this.
Yeah, I
games.
feel like we're bumping a lot of stuff up. I mean, what gets worse?
Minotaur
Yeah, I'd say Minotaur down.
Yeah, I agree with
goes
that.
down in games.
Too slow.
The main line still stays.
Prometheans probably go down. You're not going to
Yeah.
be
You
able to
can't
pop
rush.
them
Those go
early.
You can't rush
T
as
tier.
easy either.
T
Yeah,
tier, dude.
Yeah, I think they go down a lot.
We put wolves up to S tier because the amount of wolves you get. I don't know.
I mean, kind of, yeah, but I'll just leave them there for that. And I think the rest of these are pretty accurate. I think Ravens probably go up, though, in team
Go
games.
I think Scorpion Man drops to C.
Honestly, I think Pegasus might be S tier for team games.
Yeah,
Really?
team games.
The amount of scouting you can get done with
The
these
vision
units.
is- yeah.
Valuable.
Okay, I'm pretty satisfied with this for team
Yeah, I'm
games.
happy
Just a
with that.
couple adjustments, nothing crazy. Maybe troll down actually because it's so slow.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay,
Looks good.
I'm taking it. Guys, we did
All right,
3
before-
hours. How are we feeling?
Good.
Feeling
good. This was
Yeah,
really
this
fun.
Yeah, this is good.
Jay, do you
If
want
you made
to
it to the
close
end of the-
out? Any final thoughts for everyone?
Yeah, if you made it to the end of the video, love you guys. Thank you for all the help and support. We love making these, so we hope you enjoy them. And then the big thing, the Underworld Showdown, October 20th. Mark your calendars. 8 of the world's best players in Age of Mythology. Keen and JSS, 2 of the most historic franchises in this space, are going to be playing. We would love to have you. We'll have some guest people appearances throughout the stream and broadcast. And we're hoping to join you for that 8 to 12 hour day of Age of Mythology. So join us on October 20th. Underworld Showdown #1. First of many. Can't wait to have you.
All right. Thanks everyone for watching. Michael, thanks for joining in. Great to get the Atlantean feedback. And I think this is a great tier list, great conversation. And we'll go ahead and end the stream there.